Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Strong, a wide open lane. And Chad, and if those are falling, forget it.
Right in the spot. Tries to make his move. Oh! Up and away for Lane. How about Niles Lane of Delaware? One-handed alley-oop hammer. To end the half for the fight, Blue Hens with an exclamation point.
No, in the league postseason tournament.
And over May drives, hammers. Christian May want to start to the second half for Towson, the N1.
Wofford with the same lineup that they trotted out yesterday in the win against BMI. The three is in, plus the foul. Just in the game, it can make for a long night, whoever's playing against Wofford.
You got to stay down, because they're going to make multiple moves.
Patterson again. A career high 26 backing. Throws across the river for Zephyr. He'll drive on Darling. It's to the baseline in that corner. And Polo, his first hit of the night. He had 10 points.
But nonetheless, no Smith. Cut off by Peru. In the corner. 3 tries good. Jumbo gives Robert Morris the lead. And Woods has space. Hits a triple.
No! Demon's a chance for the final shot. Instead, Thomas for 3. Yes!
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's up, DB?
How we doing?
Oh, we're doing all right.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we're trying. We're hanging in there.
What? Just okay.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Cool.
Trying to adjust to a lot of things happening in the world.
Yeah, it's weird. So right after the show yesterday, I went to go sit with my buddy, and he is, and well, technically it's just hospice, right?
Yeah.
So his wife kind of left us alone, and we were talking, but not really, right? You know what I mean? It's he's not, because he comes in and out, and lo and behold, God's got a funny sense of humor. So I hear the door open, and the dogs are going crazy. The bedroom's just off the opening, and this lady comes in, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, and I knew that I knew her. Right, because I did kind of this it's kind of this little shaky thing because it's just by her greeting.
Yeah,
she was the exact same lady that took care of my dad.
Oh wow!
What are the odds?
That's crazy.
So I went to go introduce myself, and she goes, "No, I know, I took care of your dad," and I was just like, I gotta call my mom.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I text. And then I went over to my mom's, which was not good. I probably need to apologize to her because then I was off.
Yeah.
Right? My mom's like, she's probably thinking, like, why are you such a jerk? Can you just stay another 5 minutes? But I had to fix some stuff for her. But so it was good and bad.
Yeah, sure.
Probably
weren't ready to think about
No, not at all. Not at all. And I had been in that situation sitting at a bedside, right?
Yeah.
So I told his wife, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get back there today, right after the show. But so that was good. It's actually good perspective for me. Bro, it could be a whole lot worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, and then yesterday, I did something this morning too. You'll be proud of me.
Okay.
I'll tell you baby steps. So this is all related.
Okay.
So I was kind of having a moment of like, all right, man, it's whatever the word is, like bigger picture or do the right thing. So what do? I'm trying to be responsible and, savvy. I got a chuck ready.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I did with it after I seasoned it?
What's that?
And browned it?
You put it in the fridge.
I put it. No, not quite. I haven't quite.
I was like, oh man,
I haven't quite graduated to that. It went in the crock pot.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
there you go.
I did light a candle. I know it's gonna get blown out before, because she just will not leave a candle. I'm like, do not want to come home to this. But we're so there's like black beans in the season, and it's like adobo puree, and it's going to be crock pot tacos, which is not my jam.
It's not bad, though.
I mean, you talk about taking one for the team. It's like, I'm gonna gut it. Totally. But yeah, because there's always got a spring program at 6. And Breeze doesn't get done until 5:30.
So you're not going to have a lot of time.
This is split duty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had softball last night, so I ate really late. 8?
What does softball look like at that age? Because she's 6?
It's surprisingly pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it like coach pitch at 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like these little clinics, which I like.
Like
you don't
teaching?
you don't need to be doing games.
Yeah.
It's the same thing I would do with soccer. It's the same thing I do with a lot of things. But she's very coordinated.
Yeah.
And she's like a mimic. So if you show, she'll do.
Yeah.
She really likes that.
Nice.
Yeah. Her bat's too big, and they don't want her to choke up yet.
Oh, okay.
So we're making a few adjustments.
They used to yell at me.
I didn't go.
Yeah.
You'd think I would.
You got to get the report back.
I probably ought to start being like a decent dad.
I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things that appeals to me the least about the idea of being a father, and there's a lot. There's a lot. Like, I mean, we'll move past the financial and the practical of it all.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty selfish and I like spending money on myself.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a huge deterrent was the youth sports. Yeah. Like little kid sports, right?
I'm a seasoned veteran.
You get to like middle school, they're like sort of coordinated enough.
I'm just telling you, anything's possible.
Yeah.
Because Micah was awful.
Yeah.
So parents, there's hope.
No, I get that. I just don't.
He's actually good.
I just don't want to sit through it. Like I don't want to watch.
Listen, I didn't either.
At all.
I felt there's some guilt.
I'm
like, God, this is miserable. And why are you handing it to the referee and he's gonna give it back to you so you can shoot? This is dumb. But I got over it. Like, you know what I mean? You just gotta get over yourself. Believe me, it's a process.
In college, I helped coach like a 10-year-old baseball team.
Yeah.
And which like you're starting to figure out like how to be a functional person at that point in terms of coordination and whatever.
Nowadays 10 is late.
Yeah. So it was weird because at that age there's a huge like split. There's some guys and like kids that have figured it out and some that are basically still children.
Yeah.
Like little kids. And so it was pretty challenging for me because I'm not that patient.
I watched a similar documentary. Guy from California. No, was he in California? He was a high school phenom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
Hunter Green.
Nope. And he ended up either going to Alabama. I think he went to Alabama, but was never the guy that he was in high school.
Football?
Basketball. And all these players, they're just like, we're Google such and such. Like he was the man.
Yeah.
You'd think I would. It's not like Benji Green or anybody, but popular. I don't know if my search history, but.
Was Benji the kid from Illinois?
Yeah, Chicago.
That got killed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And how he just never developed through high school.
You don't see as many of those now in terms of guys that just peak in basketball. At least.
Yeah, because I think like people are better at
it out.
Yeah, like not much left in there.
Yeah, they've done a much better job of being like, oh, he just grew faster than everybody else. There's not much left.
Yeah.
Versus also college basketball and the NBA are all about like frame and upside and all that kind of stuff. That's why people get frustrated. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about they were talking about Zach Edey, right? And everybody's like, well, yeah, everybody knew Zach Edey was probably going to be able to get you like 12-7 for the next decade, but you don't draft him in the top 5 because you want the upside, right? What does Zach Edey give you upside wise? So you take some guys that you're like, hey, this guy might be a huge bust, but I get the upside of a chance of having a superstar. Whereas with Edey, you just kind of know what you're getting, right? And that's sort of the like entire dichotomy of basketball evaluation now. It does still happen sometimes in football.
You know what's interesting?
What's that?
This needs you have to allow your mind to go there.
Okay.
That's exactly how I feel about a guy like Cooper Flagg.
Oh, sure. Just a projection.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
That's exactly how I feel about Cooper Flagg. I think like it's cool. You mean
he's not there yet.
No, you want 15-8 maybe?
Yeah.
15-8-4?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't think Cooper Flagg is going to ever be a 20-a-night guy.
I think what people like about him is they see the floor as what you're talking about.
The floor is high.
Super high. I
just think the ceiling is pretty close.
So I think that's where you would differ with a lot of scouts. I think scouts see some of the skill sets at the size
I know
and say, hey, if this works out.
The problem is I see a lot of NBA guys. A lot of NBA guys with similar frames with more athleticism.
Sure.
And I'm not saying Cooper Flagg's not a good athlete because he is.
Yeah. But he's not a freak.
No.
He's
not even, yeah.
I think what a lot of scouts are banking on is the skill sets coming together to form this fully fledged like NBA scorer.
How about him contemplating staying in school?
He's not.
I hope not.
I mean, so we went through this with Zion too.
College, well, I think, but for different reasons. I think
probably
because I don't think Flagg wants to go to Washington.
Well, fair. I don't know why anybody would.
Then that would be hard, right?
Sure. And especially now, because the biggest difference between Zion and now is Flagg still going to get paid. Like,
I wonder
Flagg could probably pick a number, right? If he wanted to come, he's like, hey, I'm going back to Duke next year. Find me X million dollars, and it's done. He could probably make that happen.
Let me ask you something. It's hard though.
Yeah.
It's a hard question.
Okay.
So go back to your 20-year-old self.
Okay. I was dumb.
How much would somebody have to pay you?
Not that much.
That's what I think.
Not that much.
Knowing you're going to lose.
Yeah, not that much.
So that's what I think.
Like, it's really easy to be like, oh, I want to win and whatever.
I mean, I think I could be miserable for guaranteed top pick money.
100%.
Play my brains out, get to my second contract, and move.
Yeah. 100%.
Right?
And because you're Cooper Flagg and the number 1 pick, even if it doesn't go super well, you're going to get another contract.
That's why I didn't like the Shedeur Sanders talk early about, well, he's, when Deion was like, well, he's going to go to the right team. You know what I mean? It was like, I mean, maybe it's different with quarterbacks.
I think it is. I think it's different with quarterbacks.
And it's proven it can be career killers. But again,
I mean, we've seen it too many times with quarterbacks.
66% of the quarterbacks that are starting were drafted in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not.
He'll get another shot.
So there's varying degrees, right?
Yes.
And that first contract.
So that first pick in the NBA draft makes about $12 million.
Yeah.
I could be miserable for $12 million.
Man.
Like, I'd find a way.
$12,000 would change my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I could be 1,000.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you said, okay, so when you go 20-year-old Ravi, and you go, how much do I need to get my head kicked in all the time? I was doing it for free. It's not like we were good at basketball.
But I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say this. Taking a beating and losing will take a toll.
Oh, it does.
And money doesn't really change that. It just makes you less miserable.
Yeah.
So there's always a threshold.
For sure. And I don't know. Some guys are I say built differently, but I don't necessarily mean it in a good way. Mm-hmm. Some guys don't mind the losing as much. Especially, and I don't want to be old man yelling at clouds here, but especially guys that have spent a lot
I can't believe I was 50 when I learned what that was. 50.
50.
50.
No big deal.
You know how many Simpsons episodes I've seen?
I'm guessing a lot.
That used to be my jam.
Couple hundred? Maybe more.
Lisa, it's your birthday.
Is it the Michael Jackson
birthday,
one?
Lisa.
Or the guy?
Yeah, Bleeding Gums Murphy. It's my favorite character of all time on The Simpsons. I'm at that in grade number 2.
They killed him off too early.
Oh, Bleeding Gums Murphy died? Yeah, he did. That's right.
I'm a big Apu guy.
Weird. Which is funny. Did they have any brothers on The Simpsons?
Yeah. Carl at the nuclear plant.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
black.
That's right. That's right.
I think there's.
I like how they just do the little squiggly afro hair.
Not only is he black, he's like a nuclear engineer. He's got like a.
He defies all the stereotypes.
He's got like a high-powered, high-educated job.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. I'm saying they were progressive in the 80s. It wasn't like a token character.
Wow.
I thought the Simpsons started in the 90s.
No.
89 maybe?
Late 80s, I believe.
I don't like it, but I think I'm going to agree with Ravi.
Well, we're just going to do a quick Google here.
I'm pretty sure you're right. I almost said
selfish.
1989.
Yeah, I agree with Ravi there.
One of my good friends is a
Simpsons buff.
Hardcore.
That's kind of weird to get into.
It started when he was young.
Yeah.
And so he just kept it. He is not a huge fan of the later episodes, but it's been a thing that's been going on for so long now. It's kind of
greatness is hard to sustain.
I mean, it's been almost 35 years, 36 years. That's hard to do.
Yeah, that's good math. My friend Jamie would be proud of you.
Coming up with a new episode every week. I mean, they're at like 500 episodes. It's hard to be funny that much.
Are you getting into any spring training baseball?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I saw Garrett Cole blew out his elbow.
Yeah, that was like waiting for. You just knew.
Yeah, and it seemed like they were dead. Like the second opinion was always weird because I'm like, the doctors know what a Tommy John looks like, right?
I am waiting for some advancements in
that surgery
and TJ though.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean,
I don't know what it would be, but
we're talking what, like 50 years at this point?
Yeah.
Like, you think they figure something else out?
You know, it was to a point for a while, probably 6-7 years ago, where even in high school, well, if it's going to happen early, man. It's proven you can come back and study show, and it's just
you throw a little harder. And
I'm not intentionally
blowing out that UCL.
Having that UCL and needing some work. Just not going to do that, I don't think. But
yeah,
I'm enjoying. I like spring training.
So the funniest thing about the Garrett Cole injury?
What's that?
Is how Devers just like rakes against Cole.
Yeah.
He was trending with Garrett Cole because people were making memes about how bummed out Rafael Devers was going to be. No, I've been paying attention a lot to the Red Sox have a few good young players.
Yes, they do.
And so I'm paying attention there. I see Soto's raking early in with the Mets. And then I tweeted this out yesterday with Caglione, who just hit a rock. He's hit a few rockets.
He is a big cockstrong dude who's going to continue to grow.
Yeah. Did you hear the one? It sounded like
he's gonna wind up looking like Paul Goldschmidt or somebody.
I was thinking
he's bigger than
what was his name?
He's bigger than Goldschmidt.
Travis Hafner.
Yeah.
You remember that dude?
Yeah.
That dude was a monster.
Former Cleveland Indian Travis Hafner?
Yeah. That dude was
Coach Samanji's a big Travis Hafner guy.
That dude was there were about 3 years. I want to say like 05, 06, 07, where Travis Hafner scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
He was just a monster.
He's a big cockstrong dude. Wow, Goldschmidt's only 6'3".
I don't think Goldschmidt's that big.
Caglianone's like, hold my Gatorade. Well, he's got those tapered shoulders and that thin waist. Yeah. Like he looks like Paul Bunyan.
He does. He looks big.
Listen, 6'3" is not that big. It's all relative.
Context, right?
Yeah, it's all relative.
But no, Caglione hit one. I think it was yesterday. It sounded like his bat exploded. I was like, the noise it made coming off his bat was a little startling. I listened to it probably 10 times.
It's all Royals fans need is another young guy to gush over.
I know, right? Bobby Whit. Bobby Whit. I used to make this joke with.
I don't mind Royals fan being happy though.
I don't either. They're not annoying. I don't find
at all.
No, like even when it's going
and isn't
well.
Royal fan Chiefs fan?
I think they're a different. Like I think there's overlap, but the Royals first fan.
Do you know what I know? What Chiefs fan would say?
What's that?
They're not old Chiefs fans. Is a lot like Royals baseball fans.
Yes,
new Chiefs fan. Even Chiefs fans
are annoyed with new Chiefs fans.
With new Chiefs fans.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
Yeah, like they're totally gatekeeping.
Even when the Royals are good, they don't get annoying. Like Cubs fans got kind of annoying when the Cubs got good.
Yeah,
right. But Royals fans seem pretty chill. I appreciate the Royals fans.
Chill.
Yeah, they're just chilled, laid back guys.
Just chill.
Just a pretty cool dude.
Caglione hitting the tape at 6'5", 247.
Yeah, he's
remember watching him against Nebraska, and you're like, yeah, I just don't throw that over the plate.
Yeah, what if we just walked him?
Plate coverage looks pretty good. Then that game turned into softball. That was a debacle.
What if we just walked him? What if we just don't throw him that ball?
Isn't it funny? You think about the start for this year's Nebraska baseball team. Yeah. I hope they get to that point where they can play softball.
Yeah.
Because right now, needing 2.5 hits every inning to score is not fun to watch.
No.
It's I should take a deep dive. I bet Benny Mac probably has it in his stats.
How many hits?
Yeah. It seems like it takes them about 2.5 hits to score.
You know what's funny is a lot of people, especially big Major League fans and older Major League fans, would tell you that that's what Major League Baseball is missing.
Small ball
is like multi-hit innings. You can more than the 3 true results.
Yeah, like you need outstanding pitching to play that way.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and they just lost their best pitcher, so not ideal.
Yeah,
although
they do have some arms. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm excited is not the right word, but I'm very curious. To see.
I think you got some guys that can definitely step up.
Me too.
But
me too. And who's going to seize this thing?
Losing McConaughey is not doing you any favors, obviously.
No.
That's tough.
They got to figure out what to do with Nunez too. Hopefully he gets healthy. His arm, but can't take that guy out of the lineup. They're going to be I don't know. I'm not doom and gloom. I kind of expected a rocky start.
Yeah, I mean they're going to have to do work in the Big Ten.
Kind of expected a rocky
Same thing
start.
with Omaha. They're going to have to do work in the Summit.
Do you remember the whole questions more than answers with their schedule this year?
Yeah.
It turns out the questions thing is reigning supreme.
Yeah, not a lot of answers yet. Haven't figured that quite out.
Just figure out how to score.
Yeah, I mean it seems
and maybe you will. I don't know. We'll see if Frost snapped out of it. But everybody that I talked to said that he picked up where he left off in the fall, and he wasn't really hitting the ball very well.
Yeah. That's one of those simple versus easy situations.
Okay, DJ.
Hey, got to figure out how to score runs. It's like, yeah, that's a simple question. It's not a real easy answer. Like, you just got to score a couple more.
Yeah. Are you all in on tournaments, or are you waiting for the big boys?
No, I was watching San Francisco last night because low key I've been kind of a hater on the Gonzaga resume.
Yeah.
Because it's
what do you mean low key?
Well, I was trying to give myself a little credit. It's a bad resume.
Yeah.
And so I thought if San Francisco beat them in the semis, there might be a chance they got left out because they probably deserve to be left out if that happens. So I was kind of rooting for San Francisco last night.
Yeah.
They weren't able to pull it off.
ACC gets going today. Are you happy about that?
I'm probably not going to pay attention a lot in the first day of the ACC.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Little Pitt Notre Dame.
Yeah, I don't need that in my life.
Remember about 5-6 years ago, Luke Herringody and company, like Pitt used to be, or Notre Dame used to be good.
It's
longer than 6 or 7 years
Mike
ago.
Bray.
Yeah.
Pat Connaughton.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's still getting buckets. Is he a buck?
He's a buck, yeah. And a bucket.
Kinda.
He's pretty good.
It's one of those players whose names I'll never get right spelling on the first try.
No, there's a lot of consonants in the middle there.
And the whole AUGHT thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it looks like Connaughton, doesn't it?
I think so.
I don't know.
There's a lot going on there.
I don't even really recognize it, to be honest.
He was the one that was a good baseball player too, right?
Yeah, he could rake.
Yeah. Got drafted pretty high.
Well, he could rake. Some guys, never mind. I'm not going to make this about me.
And that's totally on me.
I like baseball.
I'm here on bated breath. What do we got?
Yeah. I was showing Zoe how to use her glove, and we are doing these little drills in the living room Sunday. And just to put that thing on again.
Mm-hmm. You go all Terry Martinez, you get all chills throughout your body?
All natural. My glove is 9 inches.
Yeah?
Yes.
You got a little shorty.
I got chills throughout my body.
It's a small one.
Yeah.
I know, Shane.
Infielder or outfielder?
So that's the thing.
Were you an outfielder with a little glove?
I started out as an infielder.
Okay.
And I moved to the outfield, and
you never got a bigger glove?
I just can't.
Because some of those outfielders will go like a full 12.
I don't know how they do it.
It's crazy.
10, 11, 12.
I even use a small one in softball, and that's a big ball.
Yeah.
I like to feel like I'm just using my hands.
Yeah.
I don't want those fly men. That's crazy.
I was mostly infield. I used like a 10.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably normal.
Yeah.
Especially I have big hands.
I pitched a lot too, though, so I want to be able to hide the ball a little bit.
Yeah. I was not a very good pitcher past 6th grade.
That was all I could do, really. I mean, I did okay other plus spots, but mostly pitcher.
My dad got a lot right, but not that.
Gotta get that pitcher money.
Could you believe? Yeah. Speaking of money, I get it. The NFL salary cap went up, but this is some of these salaries.
Yeah.
You know what? Look, you're past the whole kid thing, I know, but man, I need to raise a mid O lineman.
So we can get like $18 million a year.
Claude, have mercy. I mean, is that the market?
I mean, apparently. I don't know. We went through this exercise not that long ago.
Oh, yeah, we did. We fine-tooth combed that thing.
And this was not the market last year.
And I knew the revenue. The cap did go up. But, geez.
Well, so I don't know how much you pay attention to like Ryan Russillo, but he's a big NBA guy.
Oh, I like Russillo.
He would do this.
He's big podcast guy.
Yeah, he would do this thing a couple years ago where he'd be kind of bemoaning these different contracts and guys getting overpaid, and everybody in his mentions would be like, well, but Russillo, the cap's going up. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, that doesn't mean it's still a smart way to spend money.
You have to spend it.
Like and I get you have to spend a certain amount of it, but you don't have to spend it on mediocre players.
Hey, how about how we jinxed your boy?
Yeah.
Shane, we jinxed you with a linebacker that has one of the greatest names in the NFL with Divine.
Diablo.
My man, the Saints signed him yesterday.
Which is incredible branding. Divine Diablo plays for the Saints?
We just talked about this, dude.
Yeah, like 2 days ago.
Yesterday leaving.
Was it yesterday?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what day it is.
I told you I like their roster. I said defensively, they just need a few more pieces on the back end.
Yeah. Then they lost Divine Diablo.
That is crazy. I'm sorry, Shane.
An all-time name.
Yeah.
I mean, don't apologize to Shane. We could get into this, but of any of us who deserves some sympathy, it is not Shane.
Yeah. Why?
Because my team's making moves?
I figured you'd be going through it.
My boys are gutted.
Yeah, I have. What's the plan?
I would love to figure that out. I would love to have.
And if you move off of Ayuk, which I know you guys want to,
it seems like they want to. Yeah.
Who are you throwing the ball to with a paid quarterback?
What did I text you yesterday? I go, what's the point in paying Purdy now?
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
Like, what's the point?
No, but you have to, though. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I know, but you almost have
You'll figure out the rest. Quarterback is the hardest.
I mean, you might be able to figure out the rest on offense. I don't know what they're going to do on defense.
Sneaky good pickup from the Giants, too, getting Holland. He may have been the best safety on the market.
They lost Hufanga.
Yeah.
They lost Greenlaw.
Yep.
They cut.
I was a big Hufanga guy, too. But you know what? You're going to find out. He needs the right defense.
They cut Hargraves.
Yep.
They cut Collins.
Juszczyk.
They cut Juszczyk. They let Ward walk at corner. They let Banks walk on the offensive line. They let Moore walk on the offensive line. Between offensive line but don't worry, we still have 37-year-old Trent Williams who we decided to pay.
I keep that guy around.
No, I get that, but if you're paying a 37-year-old, you're not going to pay these younger guys like half that.
Yeah. Well,
we saw what he looked like last year, and I get he was out of shape, but he never got in shape either.
Tell you what. it's hard in free agency to pick winners and losers,
especially this early.
Yeah, because you need to see what goes around it.
Yeah, like what's the other shoe that drops?
But I will say this, like on paper, the Commanders are doing work.
They are. What are the Texans doing?
I don't know.
Like Tunsil's still good.
I don't know. But Dean, he got a 5-year deal, right?
Yeah, they just re-signed him.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, CJ Stroud still needs somebody to protect him, right? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and I think you do Stroud's deal after this year.
I think so, yeah, because it'll be right before his 4th year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you get in a year early on that. Free agency was crazy yesterday.
We can get into that more. I'm still trying to figure out if the 49ers are even going to be able to field the team next year. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, your cap space will be pretty nice, but I don't know what it's not going to be for this year.
Yeah, like it doesn't do you any good. Are they just like, hey, we're going to be bad this year?
Maybe somebody's moving that we're not seeing yet.
Maybe. That's why
because the quarterback pieces fell, and I still don't have clarity on Tennessee. Maybe they do go get Cam Ward.
They might. I mean, they're going to have the opportunity. It seems like the Browns are okay with Sanders.
Or somebody.
Yeah. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We'll get into more coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Live.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. We're here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, reminding you to keep those eyes focused and on the road. You've got one job as a driver. That's to drive. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. DB?
What up?
What do we got going on the show today?
I don't know. We're going to talk to Mike J. He wanted to move up a little bit early.
Yeah.
Just because Coach Rule speaks at 10.
So we'll talk to Schaefer.
And I said, hey, you know what, Mike J?
We can be flexible.
No problem.
We're going to talk to Schaefer at 8:30 instead of our regular 9 o'clock. Before that, though, we're going to talk to Shelby Mast. He's our
swag, baby. Bracket swag.
Resident bracketologist.
Yeah. He's funny, too.
See what we can get into.
I like his little accent.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No,
I'm not going to do it. I can't. Nah.
Not a big accent guy?
I am. And his is fine because it's country southern.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
It's all right to.
But I couldn't flip it.
Snap in right there.
No.
Then we'll talk to Shelby Mast at 8 o'clock. See who's going to win this bet of ours with Omaha.
Me?
Maybe.
Well, you had another dirty bid stealer, so that's good.
I know.
Last night.
It's good for you.
That's great.
Yeah.
I need 4 of those though.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Because I can spend. Then I won't have to put roast in the crock pot. I can't believe that though. It's fine.
So what time were you?
It's more for Micah.
What time were you up?
And here's
doing a crock pot
early enough to get that done.
My goodness.
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm a goofball, I'm not showering until the last minute because I will not smell like food.
Not trying to smell like pot roast leaving the house.
Bro, your boy didn't get in the shower until like 6:22.
I smell like beef.
Real talk. That little girl, she probably didn't age well. She was a cutie pie back in the day.
She's probably like 30 now.
One of my official buddies, he texted me last night. When's the last? Because Chucky's going to get Defensive Player of the Year in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me when's the last time a point guard won ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Do you know who it was?
Ooh, I don't.
It's one of Maya's favorite players.
Give me a.
Makes me sad because I hate this team.
Is it Duke?
Correct.
It's not like Chris Duhon, is it?
Older.
Okay.
Not a bad pull though.
Good
defense. Duhon was a good defender. That's a good pull.
What? How much older than Duhon?
Significantly.
Okay.
So within the last, I need to give you a little wiggle room. Within the last,
it's not Hurley, is it?
8 years.
Oh, you meant it's more recent than Duhon.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant further back. Who was the point guard within the last 8 years? So that's 2016.
And
more
current.
recent.
Yeah.
We're not doing like a Trey Jones, are we?
That's gross. Yes, it is. Trey Jones.
Man.
That is so gross. Well done.
Thank you.
I'm probably more impressed with the Duhon reference.
Dude, that's like my late 90s, early 2000s. sports in general, but
that is a good pull.
That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's fine.
And especially I was super into, I really liked a lot of those North Carolina teams too. So I was paying a lot of attention to Duke at the time.
Yeah,
because it means I hated Duke even more. But yeah,
it's on TV more than Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, there's a stretch there where I could go pretty deep on those Duke and Carolina rosters.
Yeah, I went down that rabbit hole a couple Saturdays ago.
Yeah,
it's all old Carolina.
All
old Carolina.
Trying
to psych myself up into somehow Carolina could beat Duke Saturday.
Yeah,
somehow.
That didn't play out that way.
No. And who was like who? Why was it? Who double? Oh, it was Sam. Just jugging me with the old shiv.
Oh man, Duke's roster is so much better than Carolina's. It used to be like that.
They used to be dead even.
No bleep, Sam. I know they rot right now.
I know, Sam. I'm aware. That's why they had to hire a GM.
And really, it's Carolina.
I know.
It ain't a lack of GM. It's Humberto's fault.
Big Hubie Davis guy.
No, I am a Hubie Davis guy.
Just not as your head basketball coach?
Correct. Correct. That would be correct. How funny was it yesterday? And I know I said Saints, Shane. I meant the other dirty team in the South that hates the Saints. Divine is a Falcon.
The Falcons.
Divine Diablo is a dirty bird.
So our resident listener's boy, Mike Sauter, Michael Jerome Sauter, thought it was funny to send me tweets about Rodgers potentially going to the Steelers.
Yeah.
Not so funny now, huh, Jerome?
Yeah.
Enjoy Justin Fields.
Oh, he had already
running the triple option.
He had already talked himself into that before he even sent the Aaron Rodgers tweet.
I'm like,
he stopped by. I'm sitting in the office today. He stops by. He goes, man, I like Justin Fields. I mean, $20 million. That's a bargain at quarterback.
Who's playing fullback? Like Lydell Carr? Or...
You're gonna get like a.
And they're gonna go split back with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen.
I thought they might go see what Tony Richardson's doing. The old Chiefs.
Wow, I mean, another good pull.
Juszczyk's available now, so you might as well go get him.
Yeah, T. Rich was there around the time Dumas was. And
that's he was there with Priest Holmes, and
he did not seem like the type of guy I would enjoy being around.
Tony Richardson?
No.
Yeah. Good fullback though.
But I was young and dumb, so it could have been me. There's a good chance it was me.
I was, I had
T. Rich thought very highly of himself.
I
struggle with turtlenecks and jewelry. I know the kids brought it back a couple years ago. I think that is a horrible look.
I'm not a huge fan.
It's a horrible look.
This is a pet peeve of mine that's been popular at drafts recently.
What's that?
It's when the guys are wearing the chain on the outside of their dress shirt.
Yeah.
So it's suit coat, dress shirt, chain on top. I hate it.
It's definitely a layered look.
I hate it.
I don't like that either.
It's a bad look. Quit ruining your suits. I have very strong feelings about suits. I need you to quit ruining them.
Oh, man. All right. That's good. How about the Bears? The Bears.
I mean, Ryan Poles is...
I almost sent my man AR-15 a message. He's got to be happy about his Bears.
Yeah. I forgot he's a Bears fan.
And at least they're building from the inside out.
Yeah.
Last year, the last couple of years has been from the outside in.
Well, and the 49ers are tearing down from the outside in, so I appreciate that.
Now, listen, we can't just all have 49er hour because you're in your feels.
Yeah.
They're going to be all right.
Maybe.
You'll feel better after. You'll get some basketball today. And then.
I'm hoping Central Connecticut State can punch a ticket.
Yeah. Team Sellers.
Yeah. Get Patrick in there. Get him NCAA tournament bid.
Yeah.
Have another Creighton guy in the tournament with Al Huss.
Yeah, so that'll be 3.
Yeah.
Because you're waiting on the winner of the Georgetown game, right?
Yeah, Georgetown DePaul. So that's tomorrow.
Which is funny because they just played.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Wow.
It shouldn't matter.
No, I hear you.
And if it does, then they were going to lose the other one anyway. So what's the difference?
Sonic Smash. I made smash burgers last night.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I went to Sonic the other day.
So there's a new one in Lincoln off of 84th. I was driving to the church.
Yeah.
And they've moved it down like 4 blocks. I just wondered why.
Oh.
But
I don't spend a ton of time in Lincoln.
Is Sonic a thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Their breakfast was legit back in the day.
Their breakfast is pretty good.
What's the like lunch or dinner thing?
Like burgers. If you want burgers.
Burgers?
Yeah. Their burgers are pretty good.
Okay.
Or sometimes I'll go for like a late night snack if I want some ice cream. Their ice cream is pretty good.
What'd you get?
I just got a diet cherry limeade. I love their diet cherry limeade.
Yeah, so that might be one thing I'll go back to, like slushes.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon, but that's a thing I kind of miss.
And then I like their tater tots a lot. They've got good tater tots.
Tater tots are fire.
Yeah.
Tater tots are
so
fire.
We'll go, Natasha and I will go get diet cherry limeades and little snacks.
All right, so Sonic.
Yeah, Sonic's not bad.
I'm kind of out of touch with.
I don't know if it's always busy. If anytime we go after.
I think people think Sonic has good food, don't they?
I think so. Like for a fast food place, it's good food.
All right, I'm just checking.
I'd put it in the neighborhood of of Freddy's and Culver's.
I thought Culver's was like creme de la creme.
Culver's is good. I like Culver's.
I've never, honest to goodness, never been there.
I would put Sonic and Freddy's in the same neighborhood.
Mm.
They're in the upper tier of fast food for me.
I got some friends that hate on Freddy's because they don't like shoestring fries.
Oh, I love their fries.
I would prefer.
I love their
less
fries.
potato than more potato.
Yeah, their fries are one of the reasons I like them.
I got to ask you a question before I get back into this NFL thing because I'm still laughing at Hassan Reddick getting paid. Kind of.
Yeah.
But, dude, sat a year. I mean, did we remember he was even in the league?
I did not until I saw he got signed. If I'm being honest.
I was like, dude just played hardball, left, and got paid. Not the long-term deal, but he's getting older.
Yeah.
What do you think Coach Rule talks about today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I would assume because he's kind of just kicking off spring ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would assume he's going to talk about,
which isn't for a while still.
I'll say a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
I would assume he's just kind of talk about some of his goals for the spring, and I would guess he's going to talk a lot about April 26th. Now that it's finally been announced, I'm guessing he's going to answer a lot of questions about April 26th.
I don't know how much he's going to entertain that, but I'll be curious.
I mean, that's what people ask
we'll
about.
see what questions he gets.
I'm guessing that's what people ask about, at least to start.
Because I don't know, like, was he going to go into the whole format thing?
I don't know if they'll go into the whole format. I'm guessing more the process on landing on what to do. But it also depends on, a lot of times Coach Rule will come in with like an opening statement, and that tends to change the path of where the press conference
he just comes
goes.
in and talks about like surgeries and off-season injuries, and then
and then he'll tell you, he'll kind of tell you what he wants to talk about if he doesn't want to talk about the spring stuff. So that's I'm kind of in.
Hey, I know you asked me that question, but this is what I want to say.
Yeah, it's like here's my answer. It's totally unrelated, but you're gonna like it anyway.
We good?
We good?
Yeah, we good.
More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. DB.
Huh?
How we doing?
I'll tell you here in about 50 seconds.
In about 50 seconds? If I say, okay, if somebody says to you, now that's a tasty burger, what do you think of?
Applebee's.
Okay, we're on different pages.
Hey.
I was trying not to do the voice. I was really trying not to do the voice.
Okay, listen. So two things. Number one, you were so mildly disgusted with that answer, it made you mad. Like
it did.
But it's fine because I could tell how you looked at me. But I've done that. I've wanted to like say something or do something funny and set something up.
Yeah.
And people just like kill the vibe instantly. And it's like, okay, I'm done. And I know I'm being a Richard. Like I totally know that's a Richard move. But I'm vibing with you. Like you just cut me right there. And I ignored it because I've been there. You wanted to say, okay, you're an idiot. That's not what you were supposed to say.
I couldn't believe Applebee's is the thing that came out of your mouth.
Dude, the way you looked at me, though, and it was quick. See, that's why I wanted to be a profiler.
That's how you know it's involuntary, is how fast it happens.
Yeah. And I'm like, ooh, he did not like that answer. And I wanted to say I was just playing, but you already pissed, so it's fine.
Were you just playing?
No, I kind of thought Applebee's.
You think that's like their catchphrase or something? No, I'm like asking. I don't know.
Why did you ask me? Look, you do want to say you dummy. It's fine. I don't know. I don't know a ton.
Think like movies.
Okay. Oh, Good Burger.
No. Now that's a tasty burger.
So you don't want to go cultural on me. Are you afraid to go there with the voice?
I'm trying not to.
Well, Good Burger had black people.
Yeah, it's not a Good Burger.
Now that's a tasty Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes. I assume you've seen this movie. Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know if he's seen it.
You don't think you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't think he's seen it.
So your tone gave me Samuel L. Jackson vibes.
Yeah, so I was trying to do the tone without doing the voice, which is hard.
No, but you did the voice.
I know. I don't think Damon's seen it.
I wouldn't have known it was Samuel L. Jackson if you didn't sound like him.
Have you not seen Pulp Fiction?
No.
Okay.
I've seen pieces of it.
Okay. So Ken we were talking about Sonic. Ken in the chat goes,
Kenny or Kim P?
Ken P. He goes, Sonic, now that's a tasty burger. And I asked him.
Oh, and he's picky too because he likes to cook.
Yeah. Thank you, Evan. Evan's got me.
You're Evan?
Yeah.
No, actually, he's ours now.
You're co-opting?
Well, kind of. I mean, he texts me without you being on the text now.
That's true.
Yeah.
He probably texts you more. He texts me.
Yeah, we moved on from you.
You mind if I have a little bit of that Coke to wash down this tasty burger?
I have not seen Pulp Fiction.
It's Sprite, Shane, but correct.
I swear to goodness, I've only seen the same 30 minutes of Pulp Fiction.
Really?
Yeah, and it's the Ving Rhames, or I've seen the part where Bruce Willis is like running from some people in an apartment building.
Yeah.
That's the only two things I've seen. I don't know anything about Samuel Jackson in that movie.
Look at the big brain on Brad.
I will say this, full disclosure.
Yeah.
Because I've liked some ugly people before, but I was young and whatever. Uma Thurman is probably the worst looking person that I've ever like thought to myself, oh, she's not that bad. But I know she's not good looking.
I don't think she's bad looking.
Yeah, not good looking.
All right. I
But
mean,
just, some people, it's just like.
Some people sort of have like an energy that is, I think, people find attractive.
I don't know if I would want to date a Kill Bill like sword swinging person.
Yeah.
But she gave me some cool vibes.
Yeah.
And she's basic. Like, I like plain.
Yeah.
I know that's dumb.
What's the difference between plain and basic?
Nothing.
Okay.
Well, can I just finish the thought?
I was trying to get some clarification here.
I don't know, man. I think I should have said something other than Applebee's because he hasn't been the same the last 5 minutes.
Now that's a tasty burger.
I didn't even think Samuel Jackson was funny in that movie. Didn't he kill people?
Yeah, it's an odd movie, but it's sort of a murder comedy. It's like a hitman comedy.
How could dudes putting ball gags in your mouth be a comedy?
Well, that part's not that funny.
Yeah, that doesn't make any.
Although
I don't think comedy about that. But I haven't seen it, so I guess I should.
I never would have thought of that movie as a comedy.
There's a lot of funny lines in that movie. There's a lot because even
I used to work with a guy that thought a movie that everybody cried over was a comedy.
What?
I can't even remember, but I'm like
Severe because he's a psycho.
No, it wasn't. No, it was Sharp.
Because Severe's kind of a psycho about movies.
He's like, no, that's a comedy. I'm like, that's not a comedy. Nobody laughed. Like, what's funny about Pulp Fiction? Don't people get killed?
Yeah, there's a lot of funny lines though. Like after the scene you're talking about with Ving Rhames, Bruce Willis comes in and he's like, "You doing okay?" And he goes, "I'm pretty bleeping far from okay, man." It's a funny line.
I never got into Ving Rhames.
In context, it's a funny line. You know, that's supposed to be Lawrence.
I was kind of vibing with him in Baby Boy, though.
You know, that was supposed to be Lawrence Fishburne.
Really?
Yeah. His agent told him to stop taking supporting roles. He wanted to be a leading man after that.
I kind of like Fishburne.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if I could see him. I can't see it. Never mind.
you thought of Ving Rhames that way before?
Relax. I was trying to move on.
All right, Applebee's. We'll be right back. More Hurrdat Sports Live.
We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
3 outside, and how about Tony Osborne? His hot start to this game. Forte the steal, then Stubblefield knock it out of orbit. So timeout on the floor. 30-point lead for Omaha.
Anacevic, the loose ball. North Alabama calls up the Dogs, and Lipscomb has done it. For the second time in program history, Lipscomb is headed to the NCAA tournament.
Taylor dribbling out the final seconds, and now Stacker takes it away from him. That'll do it for the first time in school history. Southern Illinois University Edwardsville is going to the NCAA tournament.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Shelby Mast of bracketwag.com. Shelby, how are you this morning?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Shelby, this is my favorite. There's that voice. This is my favorite time of the year to talk to you. I apologize. I normally try to get you once or twice before like the big unveiling because there's always good buildup. But man, it is good to hear your voice. How you been?
I've been good.
Good.
Life is treating me good.
So it was this year. Maybe this is hyperbole, but you've done this long enough now. We would joke for the last month and a half. We said, "Oh my!" I coined it as like the middle is so big, right? Not necessarily a weak bubble, but anything from like number 18 to like number 40. It seems like splitting hairs. Was this any more difficult than it normally is for you, or did it just seem like that because the rankings fluctuated so much?
I think that this has been one of the toughest years to do the middle of the bracket.
Yeah.
You can choose around and not be wrong. There, Kansas sitting there in the 7th seed, they can easily be a 5 or move down to a 9. And I don't think anybody would yell and scream too much. It's very tightly packed.
So, Shelby, I want to ask you about a couple of local teams here before we look big picture. One of them is very important because Damon and I have a bet on it. Omaha, you've currently got them at a 15. What are their chances of staying at a 15 versus dropping down to a 16? How do you view Omaha?
I think 15 is good for them. If they get some more bid fees enough to move them down, they could fall to a 16, but I'm comfortable with them at a 15.
How difficult was it, or how much movement for you? And maybe we're talking about actually winning the conference. It seems like you've got Tennessee out in the West right now, which would make them the 4th 2 seed. Am I reading that right?
They're second. My city's list is down below. They're in the
Oh, I got it. Okay. So the closest to be able – it seems like if St. John's were to win the Big East tournament, can they move at all, or are they basically just going from an 8 to a 5?
I think their resume is not indicative of where they should be. They should be below.
Yeah.
But I think the committee is going to smile on them if they win their Big East tournament. I think the 2 seed feels right, and them and Kentucky and Texas Tech are going to block for that spot.
Interesting. I'm going to ask you about Kentucky. How hard were they for you to kind of cap/seed?
They've been difficult because they've got some really stellar wins, but then they've got a bunch of losses. They kind of make you scratch your head. I know they've had injury issues, but it's one of those where you're not real sure. And I do this trying to figure out what the committee will do, not what I think should happen. So I think the committee will give them a 3 seed, but they could be in line for a 2.
Yeah, and then and maybe A&M will join them, but they'll be the only team in the top 3 seed lines that will have double-digit losses when the tournament starts.
Right. That's the thing holding me back from putting them on the 2 line. There'd be a lot of losses for the 2 seed. I'd hard for me to see that happening.
Shelby, as I'm looking at Gonzaga, I find their resume sort of fascinating just because the metrics seem to love them, but you go through it, they don't have a ton of quality wins. Like, how do you deal with a team like Gonzaga that's taken more losses than they typically do and doesn't necessarily have the most outstanding resume, but the metrics really like them?
Yeah, they're going to be tough on Sunday because, their game's going to be finished tonight, and then they're done until Selection Sunday. Are the metrics enough to move them up from A-line? I don't know. I'm a little gun-shy because last year they got a very favorable seed, and they're just an average team out there. But this year they've got some good stuff, nothing real bad, but the metrics paint them as an 8th overall team, and the NCAA is their baby, that, and so. Are they going to move up just because they're 8? I don't know.
All right, Shelby. Now, full disclosure, I am traumatized as a Carolina fan, and it's Caleb Love. But I still don't understand. I think they're top 13 in the net, Arizona. They're top 16 in KenPom. But when you watch them play, I think they're tougher than Kentucky, in my opinion. The metrics love them, but I watch them play basketball, and I think, they're not very good.
Yeah, they're some nights they're really good, and some nights just average. So, put those two together and trying to figure out what the committee will do. They're going to probably be in the 4 or 5 line.
It's incredible.
It just depends on what the committee decides.
Shelby, I want to ask you about Creighton here. They currently are in that dreaded 8-9 spot that so many fans want to avoid. Is there any chance for them to move off of that, either from a 7 or all the way down to a 10?
There's a chance. I don't know who they play the first round of their tournament, but if they were to lose that opens the door for them to drop. But to move up to a 7, they probably have to get to the conference tournament final.
Shelby, what about a team? We were going through the odds to win the Big Ten yesterday, and I get it. There's a little love for teams like Illinois who are talented, but haven't quite peaked, or a team like UCLA who may be undervalued. When you look at a team, I'm going to give you 3 because they're all kind of similar in terms of their room for upsets. Who do you like and in terms of how they're built between Purdue, Wisconsin, and UCLA?
Boy, you could put them in a hat and just pick one out.
That's the way it seems.
Yeah, it is. Purdue has outdone themselves this year. I didn't think they'd be as high as they are, but they've, Zach Edey's gone pro, and now that they've got a nice team. Wisconsin is another one that they've had some good wins, but then some head scratcher losses. And UCLA, that's a good team too, but the same thing, good wins and head scratcher losses.
Shelby, as you kind of look at this bracket compared to previous years, at least where we think it's going, and I think we have a pretty good idea at this point, how does the top of the bracket in terms of strength compare to previous years?
I think this year you've got 7 teams that could end up on the 1 line. And usually we've got probably 3 locks. And, in the other years we've got teams that could move up because of other teams losing. We've got 7 really good teams.
Okay, so our 5, 6, 7, is it Bama, Tennessee, and Michigan State?
Yes.
Okay. Bama, Michigan.
Any of us could move up to the 1 line, and it wouldn't be a big deal.
How good do you think this year compared to others? Because, Kelvin Sampson, this is kind of what he does. They shoot it pretty well from behind the arc. Is this one of the better offensive Houston teams you've seen?
Probably so. LJ Cryer he's a great leader. But their defense is just tough. It seems like you're 5 on 7. And their offense is really good.
Shelby, as you kind of look down past that, you mentioned the 7 teams that can possibly be a number 1. Are there any teams sort of in that 3, 4, 5 range that, not necessarily for seeding purposes, but just from what you've watched and the metrics, that you just particularly like and think is really good?
I think Kentucky, they could, if they're healthy, and we know they're missing a guy, but they've had enough time to prepare without him. But if they get on a roll and get favorable matchups, that could be a really tough team. It just depends on, are they going to be healthy and, get it together. But they're very talented.
I know the ACC has been hot garbage this year, but any redeeming qualities you like in Clemson? The metrics seem to like them.
They got wins over Duke and Kentucky. They just win. That's what they're doing. And I think Clemson, they had a nice run last year, and I think they could do the same this year.
If you're looking from top to bottom, in terms of teams that you think can win it, how close is Florida to Auburn and Duke?
They're very close. There's not a big drop-off at all. Florida is going to be one of the favorites to win it all, and I'm kind of leaning toward picking them, and I'm a Duke guy.
Ooh, well, I'll forgive you. That's okay, because we can all kind of laugh at Carolina in this season, even as a Carolina fan. Let me get you out of here on this, Shelby. For teams that are built to make runs in the Big East tournament, it seems like there's some movement. There's some room for movement. I would assume Creighton's floor is a 9. What do you think their ceiling would be?
I think if they win the Big East tournament, they could be looking at a 6, but probably 7 is the best they can do, depending on what other teams do.
I'm always interested because I always want teams. I don't want to cheer for a team that's on the 8 or the 9 line. All right, so I just but you think they can get to a 7 if they win the Big East tournament?
I think they can get to at least a 7.
Oh, nice.
All right. You go. That's Shelby Mast, bracketwag.com. Shelby, we appreciate the time and hope you get some sleep after this week.
I'm going to try. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelby.
Shelby Mast from bracketwag.com. Yeah, it's a really interesting field this year.
I could see Creighton getting to a 7. Jumping 2 seed lines right now, because I think almost 80% of the brackets they're 9.
Yeah,
so it's probably their floor is a 9.
I don't know if they lost to Georgetown or DePaul. I think they drop to a 10. If they lost to Georgetown or DePaul, I think that drops them because
so Drake, Utah State, Georgia, SDSU.
I would bump Drake up. I'd bump Drake up a line to a 9.
Yeah, that's the NBC honking you.
Yep,
which
100%.
I like, but I've seen them play a ton.
Yeah, and I mean. They're 30-3. Like, come on. They're 30-3.
Yeah.
I know you're probably doing them a favor by dropping them off the 9 line, but it's also still disrespectful.
How about Kansas? He said they could be a 7 or they could be a 5.
Dude,
I know you.
They're not.
You shake your head. So here's the one. This is another one, and as I'm looking at the butterfly cannon, I got to get these in gear. Might be easy for a cheaper meal. There's going to be this discussion that I'm going to come back to because we pulled DeMarinis into it too. Teams that could make a further run in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm tempted after we see the matchups. I'll give you every opportunity to take a Big East team, but there's a Kansas versus UConn run discussion in this tournament.
Oh, I'd buy that.
There's a Kansas versus UConn discussion.
I'd buy that.
Because I asked you who you trusted more.
Yeah, I think I trust UConn more, not by a lot, but I feel like I've seen worse more recently.
You just think this Kansas team is more dysfunctional?
Yeah, I think so. When they look bad, they look worse than I think UConn looks.
Okay, but all things being equal, and they're not. I'm just want to get your thoughts on the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Same 5 guys. You taking Self or Hurley?
Well, I know you hate the same 5 guys thing because it's very different, but I probably go Self, but not by much. I mean, Hurley's obviously knows what he's doing, especially in March. So I don't have Like, I don't think there's a clear edge there, even though I personally would take Self over.
Now, I do think there's a case to be made, whether you're talking development or they have better players or worse players when I talk coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But the easiest way for me to do it linearly is all things being equal, whether they're good or bad.
So the reason that I sort of laughed at that was because I think Hurley has to recruit a specific type of personality to deal with who he is. Like, I think that matters when you're like, I think certain types of guys are more attracted to playing for a coach like Hurley than others are. So that's why I sort of hesitated there. Because can you imagine, like, AJ Storr would never play for Dan Hurley in a million years. Like, that would never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Dickinson, the way he's been playing, probably
could not play
for Danny Hurley, right? So there's a bunch of that kind of stuff that immediately popped into my mind, which makes answering that question a little harder if I'm just doing 5 for 5 there. But like, if I know we got Sam in trouble with this, but if you just switch those coaches, I don't think it goes well for either side.
We didn't get Sam in trouble. Sam got Sam in trouble.
Like, I don't think Self on UConn's roster probably does better than Hurley with Kansas's roster, right? Like, Hurley on Kansas's roster, that thing probably shuts.
You think Self has more range?
Yes, and I think
that's fine.
Hurley has to.
There's coaches like that's a thing.
Hurley has to coach a specific type of guy.
That's a thing.
I think Altman's the same way. Altman kind of needs to coach a specific type of guy. We saw that at Creighton at the end of his tenure.
Who do you trust more? Because they have some weird similarities.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona or Kentucky?
Oof.
When you watch Kentucky, are you like, oh, they're good?
Sometimes, not always.
Well, you sound like Shelby.
I mean, it's true. Here's my tiebreaker. I know I'm not the Carolina fan like you are, but I aggressively dislike Caleb Love and the way he plays basketball. So I would never pick Arizona. Like, he's one of those guys that I cannot stand how they play basketball.
I'm always
not for me.
There's going to be that team or two, and sometimes 3, that's going to come from the 7 or lower line.
Yeah.
That's going to make their run. So I'm looking at the 7, 6s, and 5s.
Sure.
Somebody's going to be in there. Some bodies are going to be in there.
Yeah. Well, so if you're looking at 7, 6s, and 5s.
I mean, I got one.
UCLA.
I like them. I asked Bob about him the very first time we talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis is dangerous.
Oh, there was another one I thought you were going to go to because you like this team a lot.
Who's that?
BYU.
Oh, yeah. Hey, they're good. And they're built for this.
Yeah.
I think people will like BYU.
I would take.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. They're a 6, right?
Bracket Matrix has them as a 7.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's several teams I would take over Arizona or Kansas in those 5, 6, 7 line. I would take UCLA. I would take BYU.
I'm surprised UCLA's offense doesn't bug you.
It does, but I've seen them win like that before, and that's also true to kind of who their identity is supposed to be under Mick Cronin.
Yeah.
It's not something I particularly enjoy, but it's true to what they're trying to do. So I appreciate that they're succeeding at what they're trying to accomplish. But I would take BYU. I would take UCLA.
I feel like I talked you into UCLA over the last 2 weeks.
Well, it's funny because I was trying to talk you into UCLA.
No, you tried to talk me into the fact that Mick Cronin did the right thing.
It worked. I mean,
eventually.
Hey, better late than never.
You just skipped over how they lost the next 3 after he said that.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Hungry dog gets the bone.
They weren't hungry enough yet. Now they're hungry.
Yeah.
They're like Tyrese and Too Fast, Too Furious.
I gotta see where
hungry.
I gotta see where Illinois is seated.
So I was gonna bring up Illinois because if you want a hyper talented team that is sort of hit and miss, I probably take an Illinois over a Kansas or an Arizona, personally.
Yeah.
Because
I've seen both those teams get their doors blown off in the last 2 weeks.
100%. Yeah.
Illinois and Kansas.
Yep.
I mean, blown just completely out of the water.
Embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think Illinois' talent's better.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So I'll take them. If I'm choosing between imperfect things, I'll take the talent.
Although I don't like Braswell as much as most.
Yeah. But I'll take Illinois, BYU, UCLA out of that 5, 6, 7, and maybe Oregon. Over Arizona or Kansas. And shoot, I might throw St. Mary's in there too.
No. Don't. Pace of plays. Nah. I don't know, man. I've wiped a lot of eye boogers out of my eye watching that basketball at night.
I understand that.
Ugh.
But sometimes that
it's like Boggy Creek, man.
I know, but sometimes that stylistically is enough to give people problems. Like that's a thing. That's a real thing. You keep the game uncomfortable. You keep it in your wheelhouse. If they're able to impose that pace on people, like that's part of what makes them dangerous.
So if and I'm looking at Shelby's bracket right now, and at Bracket Swag, his 12s are High Point, VCU, McNeese, and UC San Diego.
He's a little higher on High Point. A lot of people have him as a 13.
If High Point's a 12,
they're in business.
Somebody's 5 is in danger.
I think if they're a 13, the 4 is in danger.
And UC San Diego's good too.
So if they're a 12, the current 5s are Arizona, Oregon, Michigan, St. Mary's. Is that right?
Yeah.
And if they're a 13, it's Wisconsin, Maryland, Purdue, Clemson. The only team that I don't like there,
Maryland,
is Maryland. If I'm High Point,
hard to believe Maryland's a 6.
Oh no, that's a 4.
Okay,
They're
I thought you said.
No, I went the other way. I went up.
My bad.
Yeah. So Maryland as a 4 is the only matchup I'd be like, I don't love that for High Point. I'll take my chances with High Point against the other 3.
I think you'll like UC San Diego too.
I haven't seen them this year.
I think
full disclosure, I haven't seen UC San Diego.
I can't wait to see these games get capped.
Oh,
because you will see several. Are you a higher or lower guy with seeds? How particular are you?
What do you mean?
That we get it right.
Oh, I'm not super particular.
Like lower seeds, you mean when you say lower seeds?
Yeah.
Are you talking worse or better?
Worse.
Okay. So lower as in
bad.
Bad.
Higher, better, lower.
Okay. All right.
I get it's backwards, but
I just want to make sure we're
having the same conversation.
Yeah, because there will be lower seeds that will be favored.
Oh, for sure.
There always are, but I think there may be more than normal. And it won't just be your 8, 9s, and 7, 10s.
No, I think you're going to get okay. Right now, Xavier's listed as a 12.
Yeah.
You don't think Xavier would be favored over some of those teams?
Well, I could see Arkansas being favored over St. Mary's.
Arkansas. Listen, I know people don't love Cal.
Or Oklahoma.
But that's a talented team. I'm not sure anybody wants anything to do with Arkansas.
Because right now, currently, Oklahoma's on the 11 line or 12.
I've got Oklahoma on the 11.
As a team that has 5 conference wins.
Unbelievable.
Enjoy that. They got some good wins. They got some good wins.
Well, and they got a lottery pick.
Yeah. Oh, Fears?
Yeah. Like that's you gotta watch out for those teams.
I know it. And he is capable.
And the SEC's a gauntlet too. So like Oklahoma might just be a victim of circumstance.
I don't like all the Florida talk now as the seasons wore on.
I know.
It was fun when it was in January.
This is your fault.
It's not fun anymore.
It's your fault. You did this.
Because now I'm going to get off of them. No, serious.
I know. I got to see how many people are picking them for the title because I don't want it to be too popular. I think it's going to be an Auburn Duke heavy picks though.
Yeah, that would be something.
We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Live.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and brought to you by For the Greater Good. It's UNMC's and Nebraska Medicine's 24-hour giving day, during which alumni, students, faculty, staff, former patients, and the community at large come together to raise money for scholarship programs, research, student groups, patient care, and other critical resources. It's all for the greater good. But you can start your giving now. GreaterGoodGivingDay.org. That's GreaterGoodGivingDay.org. givingday.org. You can make your donations now, but the push, the 24 hours of giving, is March 26th through March 27th, noon to noon on those days, and you will be eligible for some very cool prizes like the UNMC hats that we brought in the other day for every gift over $75 made during that 24-hour time period. It's greatergoodgivingday.org to give either during that 24-hour time period, or you can just go ahead and give now as well. Don't forget, also help us spread the word about For the Greater Good. DB.
What up?
We have Schaefer, by the way.
Okay, well, we've got Schaefer, apparently. We've got our friend Mike J. Schaefer, Husker 24/7. What's up, Schaefer?
Not a ton. How you guys doing today?
We are good. We are good. Did you figure out the great cheese caper from yesterday?
No, it'll be on the next one. I mean, I just had to survive with cheese that didn't melt quite how I wanted on the sliders yesterday. So it was fine. I mean, it would have been better had the cheese melted as expected. But
Hey, Mike J, we may get you to log back in. It sounds like we're having a few audio difficulties. You want to try them again, Shane?
Yeah. Let's,
Schaefer, we'll call you right back, babe.
Yeah, it's a little robot-y there.
Yeah.
Not really sure what was going on.
Schaefer was doing.
I'll say, what was he working on yesterday?
He had the big flat. I'm going to ask him, but I think it looked like his picture he sent me. Looked like he was doing sliders. So he did the ground beef in one big square.
Gotcha.
And then I think he was going to put it on the rolls and then
like cut it apart.
Cut it.
Yeah.
But he was not enamored with how his cheese melted.
Cheese melt's important.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's very important. Travis is basically telling you to get your act together, Shane. That's what Shane means.
TK said Schaefer sounds like a dolphin.
Oh, that's a good one.
We can try it again here.
All right, let's try it again.
Schaefer?
Let's see how Mike J sounds.
How we doing?
how's this?
That's pretty good.
Better?
Yeah.
Got it. We're locked in.
That's good.
Acceptable?
It's acceptable. So you're going to change the cheese neck? Did you put the whole hunk of beef on the sliders and then cut them?
Yeah, so like you use the box of the Hawaiian rolls to then push down the size of the hamburger patty and then cook that thing in its entirety, 3-4 minutes on one side, get the sear, flip it 3-4 minutes, toast the buns over on the other part of the Blackstone, and then you dress it up however you want. So that way Shelby can have her precious section with no cheese on it, and I can have my loaded section with everything else. So
is she that might be her first mistake. Is she
her favorite foods are nachos and pizza, and she doesn't like cheese.
Wait, I'm sorry.
It's throwing me for a loop too.
Hold on. So, okay. Hold on. I need a second here. We got to rewind.
How does she?
Okay, so I need some clarifying questions here. I assume your wife is not a serial killer. So she's not eating nachos or pizza without the cheese, right? There is cheese on those items.
No, there's definitely cheese on those things. She says she doesn't like cheese. But those are her two favorite foods.
Because I have a friend, I think Evan actually used to eat his pizza without cheese. Doesn't like cheese. So he'd eat his pizza without cheese.
She's not that. I don't want to misrepresent here.
Because that's sociopath behavior.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty that she isn't a serial killer because I'm not with her all the time. But I feel reasonably sure that she is not. And there's people who don't like cheese, but it baffles me that her like favorite two things are nachos and pizza.
And
there's cheese.
Yeah,
interesting.
Not just there is cheese, like the cheese is one of the main
central part of the entire thing.
Yeah, like it is like they're a big part of the party there.
Schaefer, have you mastered your hotspots yet?
With the Blackstone?
Yeah.
I have specific areas where specific items go. So I don't know that it's mastering anything. It's just having like, okay, so when I'm cooking beef or whatever, it's always going into this section on this burner. If I am warming buns or making pancakes, it's all the way on the far right. No matter, like, it never changes. Eggs are usually in the middle. Sausage and bacon are more to the left. Like, the meat largely gets cooked to the left side of the Blackstone. other stuff is largely to the right side. The reasoning, I have none. It's just how I started, and I stay that way.
Is it what hand you are?
I don't. It could be. I think a lot of it is that the way our house faces, we get this this wind coming out of the southwest, and so I would rather the meat be further away from the wind because you need the temperature usually at the higher level over there. So it's more an idiot's attempt to try to control the weather slightly while he's on the griddle. I mean, that's really,
you know
what
what's funny though? It 100% matters. I
mean, it does to me, but I'm the same guy who has there's 5 burners on the range. I have a very specific burner for very specific items. Can't explain why, but that's just the way that it is, and it's been that way at both houses.
I was gonna say, I believe that's called OCD shape.
I'm not that crazy.
I believe that's the.
I don't know. I mean, you guys have met me. I don't know that I'm a candidate for OCD, but with that specifically, it's a thing.
And you have egg rings too, correct?
Oh yeah, those things are fantastic.
Okay.
Also great to use when you have a small child that you can just cook them up a little square piece of egg pretty easily, or whatever you want to throw in there with the silicone rings.
Nice. Okay. All right. So back to football. No, let's do basketball first, just because I trust you, just because you've been a fan for so long and you're younger. So but I think the opinions are of somebody that's been a fan for 50 years, right? You just kind of have that range in your soul. When what do you want to see happen for growth in the program? Does it start with on the court stuff or off the court stuff?
I think for me, it's on the court stuff. I don't know how other people perceive this, but having watched enough Nebraska basketball, I feel fairly convinced that Fred Hoiberg is the best coach I've watched Nebraska have. So I don't particularly worry about what's happening on the sidelines or, the whatever it is, setting up plays or diagramming and running an offense. Or I think they have a terrific coach. I really do think Fred Hoiberg, the amount of times they have open looks and everything in every game, I think he can diagram and run an offense. Now, do they have the right personnel to run his offense? That's kind of the big question. And so for me, it's more on the court in terms of, are you getting the right people in the right spots? Do you have the right mixture to be successful in the Big Ten? Do you have the evaluation chops that you can see somebody and think that he's a shooter in one spot, but he can still be a shooter in the Big Ten? I mean, so I also feel like they largely do a pretty good job of that. I know that they're this past year taking a lot of heat for not having shooters, but nobody thought that Bryce Williams would be a guy that could lead the conference in scoring when he came out of Charlotte 2 years ago. No one thought that Juwan Gary could be this type of player when he came to Nebraska 3 years ago. I don't think people thought Rink Mast would be the central ingredient of a tournament run when he joined the team 2 years ago. So I think that Fred Hoiberg has an eye for talent too. So all of that being said, a lot of it for me is just getting it figured out on the court. And I would much rather go through a season like this where, it's unfortunate Nebraska didn't make the NCAA tournament, but they're in the conversation. They're right there. They're on the bubble. I mean, we're not that far removed from Nebraska being 9-22, or the Tim Miles era, which bookend between 2 really nice seasons. You had a bunch of just mediocre fodder in the middle. I want to avoid that whenever possible. And I know that it was an ugly start for Hoiberg, but I think he's transitioned into figuring out how he wants to play. He moved on from coaching members that I think were detrimental to the start of the operation there. And I like where Nebraska basketball is at. I think people are really upset because you want that follow-up. And we saw how close it was last year, and Nebraska built a pretty good resume and then didn't finish the job. And I think it's good to have that anger, but I think it's misplaced if we're talking about moving on from Fred Hoiberg. I know that wasn't the question, but that's been the nature of the conversation for the last however many weeks.
So, Schaefer, help me out here, because I tend to agree with you. I do think he's pretty good at the on-court coaching, getting open looks, that type of thing. I don't know that I necessarily agree on the talent eval player acquisition, although you make some good points there with the examples you bring up. But let's assume you're right on both of those, that he's got a good eye for talent and that he's got a good eye for the X's and O's and coaching. So what's the missing ingredient? Like how did we end up where we are if both of those things are true?
I mean, this sounds really stupid and simplistic, and feel free to mock it, but there's only so much you can do until guys make shots, right? Like, what else is Hoiberg supposed to do this year if Connor Essegian can't make a single three-pointer against Iowa, if he's a non-factor against Maryland, you lose both of those games, if you can't hit the three on a wide-open look against Michigan, if you have a guy like that and you know what he's capable of, and he finished with the same shooting percentage as Keisei Tominaga last year from three-point, but he's not making critical shots. That's sometimes you flip a coin a bunch and it comes up tails. That seemed to happen to Nebraska this year. Like I can't look at this team and think that it's this colossal failure of being put together when I also thought that they were right on the precipice of making the NCAA tournament if they win 2 more games. Like, I can't have it both ways. I can't tell you that he put together a terrible roster and yet they were right there in the NCAA tournament discussion when you lose games because Brennan Rigsby has the best game of his life and no one will know that name outside of Nebraska basketball fans for all of eternity. Or when you are unable to get wins against Rutgers or Iowa or whatever in the month of January. And that all comes down to coaching, and that comes down to Hoiberg, and that comes down to on-court performance. But I thought the team was good enough to be an NCAA tournament team. They beat more than a handful of NCAA tournament teams. They played up, they played down. Maybe Hoiberg couldn't get the right gauge on how to get those guys motivated or how to get those guys playing consistently. It felt like there was too often 10, 15-minute periods in a 40-minute basketball game where Nebraska was in a walkabout where they were allowing too many baskets or couldn't, avoid turnovers. But again, I think it's disingenuous to say on one hand that Nebraska was right there in the NCAA tournament picture, which it was by all accounts, and then say that they did a poor job putting together a basketball team. Like the results weren't there. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything leading up to that was bad or that, like if a couple things are tweaked or a couple things go your way or a couple shots are made, we're having a different conversation right now.
So, Schaefer, I'm glad you brought that up and put it in that way, because I would make the argument, and I'll see if I can convince you here. I would make the argument that Hoiberg is actually even better than we think and you think he is at the actual coaching part. But because of that, it makes it seem like he's better than he is at the talent evaluation or talent acquisition part. Like, I think
so he's maximizing lesser pieces is what you're saying?
I think that's what I hear. Yeah.
Because when it all comes back to, well, how does this guy always have his career game against Nebraska? And the shots are there, but they just don't hit them. Like, if you have better players, they make those shots. Like, that's just
I agree that Nebraska's roster was not as good as it was a year ago. And I fully agree with that. But ultimately, the guys have to make plays, right?
Right, but that's my point, right? Is they don't have guys that are going to consistently make plays. Like the talent acquisition, like maybe they got the best guys they could, but the talent acquisition, or maybe it's the development a little bit of getting those guys to the place they need to be, just hasn't been what it needs to be. Like I look at this Nebraska
when you
roster,
say hang on. When you say development, like who's gotten worse?
I'm not saying anybody gotten worse, but if you look at a guy and you're like, hey, Connor Essegian has the ability to be a good shooter.
I got you.
We've got to get him to the point where he's consistent. Right?
Sorry, Schaefer. Go ahead.
So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say part of it too is Keisei Tominaga wasn't Keisei Tominaga until halfway through his second year. Like if Connor Essegian comes back next year with ranked Mast and you have a slightly different offensive setup and he becomes a 42% 3-point shooter, we're having a different conversation about what Connor Essegian, like it's part of it when we have these talks, especially about college athletes, is they're always evolving. Like we want to have the conversation as if they're capped out at their skill level or this is exactly what a player is. And that's not necessarily true. You brought in Connor Essegian to be something more than what he was this year, and maybe he gets to that next year. If I'm going along with your line of thinking, and I don't think that you're wrong, I think that we're meeting somewhere in the middle on this. I would look at point guard, bringing in Raleigh Wooster, who you know has an issue of shooting. Like, that's a tough decision to make. You watched Aaron Ulis all of last year in practice and decided that was good enough for you on your bench this year. Both of those guys were not good enough, quite frankly. I mean, what I wouldn't trade to have J.J. White come 50 miles down to Lincoln and replace Nebraska's point guards, and what this season would have looked like with that kind of trade. I mean, I think they're a tournament team if you have J.J. White playing instead of Raleigh Wooster or Aaron Ulis in those minutes. I mean, one of the biggest criticisms I have on Fred Hoiberg has been the inability to figure out point guard since the moment that he's gotten here. He's survived by having point forwards and point centers. And, you know, for every Delano Banton and Sam Greitzel, you end up in these situations where you have Raleigh Wooster on the bench in large segments of games, and Ulis on the bench because you can't play them. They're not good enough for you. And so that's absolutely an area where I feel like they have to get better, is they have to figure out the point guard thing.
Schaefer, when you look at, you know, numbers get floated and who's making what, and I hate the whole NIL talk because sometimes people are just flat out wrong in terms of what guys are getting. But having said all that, are you okay? Do you feel pretty good about Nebraska's financial commitment to basketball? Because the low-hanging fruit or the narrative now is, well, they get the best that they can. They're just not spending money wisely. And it's not like they don't make runs at guys. So I think the conversation is a little more nuanced than funds available versus the guys that are getting the money.
Yeah, I think they have support. I think it certainly could be more, which is true of everybody, right? Like that's not a knock on anything, but it's not that they didn't have money, and it's not that they didn't spend money, but where they allocated money last year did not work in their favor. And some of that was some of the money, from what I understand, some of it came in a little bit later, and you're spending on a very specific position that's going to cost more money. Then you're going to pay more for a Braxton Mia than you would have for some other guys in your class because you feel like you have to have that. And to a degree, maybe you did. But hopefully there's a better plan in place this year. There's a better understanding of what your funding is. I think last year was sort of unique because you had Juwan and you had Bryce, and so much of the portal are guys that play in a similar spot or a similar position. So you weren't necessarily seeking out those players. So you're trying to build specifically around this build of Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary. And you knew Rink wasn't going to be back. So I think it's a little more open this next upcoming year, but they have a lot to replace. So it works both ways.
Yeah. How do you sell a placeholder knowing that Mast is coming back? Right? It's like, what are you telling a Morgan or Mia or these guys? Well, hey, this is for 1 year.
Well, that's why you're specifically looking for 1 year players. I mean,
that hard.
I think they had some other people ahead of Braxton Mia that they just weren't able to get. And so, you know, it didn't work out as you wanted in that sense. It'll be interesting how they choose to go about it this time, because outside of maybe the two redshirt freshmen who we know nothing about in Frager and Janikowski or Janowski and Hoiberg, Essegian, and Mast, is there anybody else that we feel comfortable would be coming back? Because if that's what you have, you've got a completely wide open slate to kind of operate under there. Because Mast can be a stretch 4 or he can be a 5. Hoiberg can come off of the bench, or he can play, you know, the off guard for you. Essegian can come off of the bench, or he can. So I just think that they have a more open slate to kind of work from. But at the same time, you've got a lot of statistics and a lot of scoring and a lot of, you know, leadership that just left the team or had their last game on Sunday.
What do you do with like a Gavin Griffiths moving forward, where that's like a pretty high profile sort of, I guess, whiff from this class that probably would have been really useful? I mean, is that a guy you look at as possibly a contributor next year, or Like, what do you do with that?
I personally
Artist.
would. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen him play more, especially down the stretch when you're not winning anyways. But it's hard to say. I mean, how many games did he just didn't even get on the court in that stretch? It seems unlikely that he would be back. But I would almost be willing to bet on that upside if he's willing to stick around. I mean, some of it is whatever his NIL is. Do you need that money back to give to somebody else? Does he want to just go play at a lower level so he has more opportunity? What he chooses to do can affect you there. But I wouldn't hate the idea of trying to bring him back and see what's there in a second year. I mean, I think we see so many of these guys that are plug and play players that can step in and play immediately, but there's still a handful of guys that in the old system would have had to sit out a year, would have been able to get acclimated with where they're at, acclimated in the offense, acclimated with what the conference plays like, and then would have their opportunity going forward. So I think, we judge really harshly when guys don't work immediately, but that's not the way that it used to be. There used to be more of a build-in to a transfer. Now the expectation is that you have to be able to play right away from day one.
Although I think football may put a hold on that narrative because they still have, I think, guys that are kind of developmental and
especially this staff. I mean, they're trying to do it both in the portal. I mean, they want the immediacy, but they want their Gabe Moores or Jalen Georges or Andrew Marshalls or Amir Khans, guys that you can see what they are a couple years down the line without having to expect that they're immediate players. But then you also get the Desan McCulloughs and the Watson Trents and everything else.
It's funny. I'm glad you bring up guys like Marshall, just because I think as a fan base, we've kind of penciled him in, and he's just one of a many that I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know, guys. Like, it's a big jump and a lot's asked of you. Like, this offseason is literally a thinning of the herd. I'd be very reluctant to pencil anybody in.
Well, I mean,
outside of maybe O-line. I mean, you do have to have some guys like Rocco and hopefully Pritchett kind of step up in a hurry. But and Key's another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Rocco and Pritchett aren't able to take starting jobs for you, then you're going to be
a problem.
You're going to be pretty unhappy, I think, with how the season goes. And even if they do, it's not a guarantee that it's going to look pretty either.
Let me get you out of here on this, Mike J, so you can head over. Do you have something in mind that you think you want to hear? You know how sometimes during these pressers, he'll say what he wants to say, but are you going to kind of go by the opening statement? You're playing it by feel? Like, what do you think today is about? The precursor for spring?
Well, it sort of depends on where the conversation goes. Is it going to be trying to get all the nuts and bolts of everything ahead of the spring, where guys are at health-wise, who's going to be available? All of that stuff's really valuable. And then you have people like me who want to ask a big picture question every now and then, or something related to they just hired a general manager. And I'm curious how that all works with Matt Rule, and someone that famously has his fingers in everything. How much control of the roster is he ceding to a general manager? How much of the day-to-day operation is that individual taking over? I mean, I have questions related to that.
Contract guy. I really bet he's the contract guy.
Yeah. And maybe that's just what it is. But that's just one of the new areas. And he's talked in a lot of these podcasts he's done lately just about the evolution of the recruiting department or player personnel in college football. And so I wouldn't mind trying to get him into that venture as well. But a lot of it's going to be, I think, the spring nuts and bolts, how he feels about things, how guys have worked out, things of that nature. And, and then we'll see kind of where it goes from there.
That's our guy, Mike J. Schaefer, Husker 24/7. Schaefer, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks for accommodating my schedule, and we will check with you next week.
Thanks, Mike J.
That is Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7.
They'll have a couple of surprises in that secondary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nebraska just dropped the official announcement of Sir Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, the new GM of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So I think that might be a topic of conversation at the good old presser today, DB.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will see. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Oh, I pulled a Ravi. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Live. Old DB, Ravi, Lulla. We are here at our Centris Federal Credit Union stage. I hope you guys are enjoying my balloons. As Ravi,
What are you guys doing up there?
Ravi is babysitting my Wi-Fi.
Oh,
because that's what I need as a babysitter. Do you have any problems with that? Do you want me to go down to Lincoln? I can go ask some questions at the presser if you want me to.
Just
you'd have to excuse me right now.
Calling in the Indian guy to do the IT work. It's fine.
It's a great thing I don't have joke Tourette's because I would like to think I'm kind of witty, and ooh boy.
All right, just go on your Wi-Fi for now.
Oh boy, see, It's not me.
No, it's the computer. It's not connecting to the hardwire.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have time to figure it out right now because we're doing a live show.
Is this thing live?
You are looking live.
Big Musburger guy.
You are a big Musburger guy.
I know, I am.
Not
He's gonna have something to cheer about too.
Not as big of a Keith Jackson guy as a.
I loved Keith Jackson.
Yeah, that's what I say. You're a big Keith Jackson.
But when he
guy.
lost his fastball, it turned into a.
It did.
It was a changeup.
It did.
Yeah.
It got away from him in a hurry, unfortunately.
You're not that. The talent thing did not sit well with you, did it?
No, because I think that's the problem. I think that's the.
Well, they
problem.
clearly. But I think I think he knows they need better players.
Yeah, but I mean, so the way that Schaefer phrased it, and that's why I pushed back on it, was that he thinks he's doing a good job in roster acquisition, roster construction, however you want to phrase it. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think he's done better than he did at the start.
Now, okay, I don't know. I heard relative to the complaints.
I mean,
I don't know if he's settled in on this is a good roster.
Okay, fine. That's a fair distinction. I will say the problem with this team is the roster. I don't think it's the coaching. I think Fred's a really good coach. I think he's right about that. I think he's maximized this roster. I think he gets consistently good looks. Mm-hmm. I think that he consistently comes up with him or her staff or whoever comes up with good defensive game plans. I don't think the roster is good enough to consistently execute. That's the whole thing to me. It's the roster, right? And I've seen the reason I feel so confidently in this because I've gone through this before.
Well, it's an easy question. If you take the top 12 teams, you take all the teams that are in the Big Ten tournament, so 13 of them.
Mm-hmm. Is there a single roster you take Nebraska's over?
Not even that.
Okay.
Outside of Bryce Williams and Gary, there's not another starter probably. Maybe a Sejan. Maybe.
But he wasn't even a starter for Nebraska for a lot of the year.
I understand. But depending on how a roster is put together.
Yeah, depending on what you want.
Yeah.
Sure. That's it.
That's all you need to know.
That's all of them. And so, and I've been through this because I've said a lot of the things that Schaefer said as a Creighton fan in previous years. I'd be like, oh, man, they're getting open looks. They just got to knock them down. Or, oh, man, it seems crazy that every game some rando goes off and has their career high against Creighton. That's just bad luck. It's not bad luck. It's what happens when your defensive game plan has to sacrifice something. When you're not good enough defenders to consistently go out there and just guard people, you scheme something up that takes away the best couple guys, and then you're opening the door for someone else to beat you. Right. And because it's Division I basketball and power conference basketball, usually the third or fourth guy, if you give him that big of an advantage, can go off on you. Right. So that's what we're experiencing here with Nebraska is it's partly because Hoiberg's doing a good job on the defensive game plans to take away those first few options that you have some rando go off and it's like, oh, that's just bad luck. No, that's how the game plan was designed because that's how it had to be designed because the talent on the roster is not good enough to do it any other way. There's a reason. It's not just unlucky that you miss open shots all the time. You don't have the guys that can consistently make those shots.
When you say can't do it any other way, you mean margin of error?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Like you don't have a ton of other options because the talent's not at a high enough level.
I'm vibing a little.
I've seen this. Like I saw this with Creighton when they were going through.
But here's the thing, though. You don't let a 28% 3-point shooter go bonkers in Minnesota because
it depends on.
You know what I mean, though.
It depends on the shooter, though, right? Like there's certain guys that shoot 28%, and you go, I know that guy's a capable shooter.
But Ravi, listen to me though. Like 3 of those shots he hits were like off the dribble pull-ups. The game winner was not like.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be that dude that just picks at the one thing that I think I can.
And here's the thing:
diffuse the general discussion because I kind of understand what you're saying. If you're talking about you're not good enough to overcome small margins.
Yes. So here's the thing: is because you're set up the way you are with a roster that's probably not as talented as it needs to be, and you have to play in a certain way that creates these small margins. Then when a guy does have kind of a fluky thing, you can't overcome it.
Okay, let's say you're spot on.
Mm-hmm.
But then you actually watch the games. and you see what happens against Penn State, or you saw what happened against even Minnesota, where you make the comeback, or you saw what happened against Rutgers.
Northwestern when you fall behind big.
Like
any of the games where you fall behind between 15 and 19.
Like that's not what you're talking about.
No, that's not. That to me. So if you want to,
you understand why I give
do.
you. There's hesitation there.
I do. If you want to put something on coaching, and guys not being ready, and guys not being locked in, and guys not having the level of consistent effort to prevent those things from happening, those are the games you would point to. Like if you want to point to coaching, those are the games you point to. And I don't have a good answer for it because I can't figure out why it kept happening either.
So Hurley's off the hook because he's won 2 natties, even though he has a player come out and publicly say, this is on us. We just don't we got to stop playing to the level. I mean, we just glossed over what Caravan said, and we're like, well, how could Hurley let that happen? We just watched this guy sit on 60 Minutes and talk about the grind and what has to happen in practice and recruiting a certain kind of player. And then we had a player that came out and said publicly, hey, man, like sometimes we just don't play very hard.
So that's the problem with when we were talking about Self versus Hurley.
If
you get a couple guys on a Hurley team
if Bryce Williams came out and said that about this team, which we kind of believe to be true, we would look at it as an indictment on Hoiberg.
Kind of has come out and said it.
Gary more than Bryce.
Yes,
but
where it's like, hey, we need to play harder.
Yes.
Whatever,
yes.
you know. So that's part of it. I don't know. Sometimes I take that as an indictment on the locker room. Like if guys are aware of it and they say it out loud that like, hey, coach is putting us in a good position. We're just not doing it. Like at some point that's on the players.
I've been there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually don't.
I mean, I told you about the players only meeting we had last year after whoever was after North.
Yeah.
We had to nip that in the bud early.
Yeah.
Still the same staff.
Yeah. Like I usually, when somebody says something like that, I usually put it on the players. I don't think coach. Like when Caravan says that, I don't usually think, oh, Hurley's not.
So you're not a big, well, if you're allowing it, you're coaching it. If you're not coaching it, you're allowing it. You're not that guy.
Not for effort. Sometimes execution things.
Really?
Like, listen.
I think it would be just the opposite.
No, so for execution things, like if it's, I mean, Nebraska football, we had this conversation a ton, right? With Foley and special teams and everything like that, right? Is if you're not coaching it, you're allowing it, whatever. I think there's certain things where, like, let's say you've got a safety for Nebraska.
Yeah.
Okay. That is consistently late on run fits. Like, doesn't see it fast enough, isn't committing fast enough, not making the decision correctly fast enough. And you keep putting him out there, that to me is allowing it, right? You're not giving someone else an opportunity to make the read quickly and correctly.
Because you want them to coach their way into having options.
Yes. Okay. Right? That's different than execution of, say, special teams, where it's like, hey, this guy snaps it correctly in practice every single time.
Oh, we did hear this.
And then sometimes he 2-hops it back during a game.
Yeah.
I don't know how you prevent that if you're a coach, right? So execution is not always created equal. You know what I mean? There's certain things that are just, hey, this is a physical skill. You have to do it. That would be an equivalent to shooting in basketball, right? You're putting a guy in a good position to shoot the ball. He makes him in practice. He just doesn't make him in games. That you need a better long snapper. Guess what? Nebraska went out and got a long snapper, right? You need better shooters. Nebraska needs to go out and get better shooters. So, like, not all execution is created equally. The equivalent to that in basketball is, let's say you've got a guy that is consistently not in the right spot or is late. Let's use Braxton Mia, for instance, because I think this happened a lot. Consistently late rotating to help. And it happens every time. Then you're allowing it by continuing to put him out there.
How do you explain Mason Miller year over year? You just chalk that up to an emotional anomaly or confidence anomaly?
After the broken leg, yeah. I have to. I don't know what else. He shot 45% from 3 last year. I don't like. I always think he's been a little overrated as a defender personally. Like, I think he looks lost more often than people give him credit for in terms of being in the right spots. That's my personal opinion. But in terms of the shooting, it has to be a confidence thing after the leg. We're talking about from 45% leading the Big East in shooting last year to 15%. He's made 6 threes on the year.
So do you know where I'm kind of landing the plane on this?
Where's that?
And I've listened to I mean, I've listened to this for 4 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since the L. It's not like Nebraska's basketball didn't try to get better players.
Sure, yeah.
They brought them in all offseason.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say yes.
Yeah.
So I give a little pushback to the talent eval thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a talent eval, but it is a roster construction issue.
Kyle came in.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
wanted Kyle.
They talked to Saint.
Mm-hmm.
They made a run at Hunt. Like I mean, people have to want to say yes too.
I get that. Here's where I have a problem though.
Is this in regards to talent eval?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know this is an outlier. But there's a lot of guys like this out there. What did Schaefer say about the point guard spot?
Yeah, it's been an epic failure since forever.
If J.J. White was on this team,
yeah,
you don't like they could have gone and gotten a J.J. White. I get that that's an outlier.
I don't like that because you get a chance to see the product.
I understand that.
It's after it's happened.
I understand that, but what do we give Crutch credit for in finding J.J. White and Marcus Sutton? Right? Talent eval.
I know
beforehand. And I get we're talking about different kind of levels of college
basketball. And they are
also
also allowed the patience to push through and get the finished product. It didn't start that way.
I understand that, but
I don't think so because we have these conversations about like we talk. It's double-sided. We talk plug and play. Well, such and such does it, or look what happened in Indiana, or look what happened, and we'll use some place, right? And we'll talk about these turnarounds. You know what's different is the expectation level while it's happening and the pressure that people feel to turn this thing around. And we don't really value it. We had a head coach say, and listen, I'm not vouching for him, but I am saying he was at least self-aware enough to say, hey, man, I panicked because I'm competitive and there was pressure to win early. I compromised myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know who's probably not going to say that? Signetti.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like the linear. I don't like the JJ. I don't like the one-off example, even though I get the point.
So let me say this about
you're not allowed the same amount of grace to fail without the pressure of X amount of eyeballs while you're doing it.
So I would make the argument, and I get there's more pressure in Nebraska than there is at Omaha. I get that. I would argue that Nebraska basketball actually does give you a decent amount of leeway to figure it out along the way, because otherwise Fred Hoiberg wouldn't still be here. He really struggled. Now listen.
I'm just telling you why I don't like the one-for-one thing.
I understand that. And I prefaced it with saying it was an outlier. But you brought up my big issue with Fred's roster construction, not just this year's team.
Well, we heard it in football, right? It's like, well, why can't we just be Iowa?
Football's a different. No,
it's not. No, it's
because
not.
of the expectations.
No, it's
it is
not.
a different.
No,
beast.
it's Fudge, man. Basketball's had more success recently than football. What are you talking about?
I understand that, and people still don't look at it the same.
I can't help dumb.
You know that's true. Though.
I can't help dumb though.
But where do expectations come from?
I'm not letting you off the hook because
where
people
do
can't.
Expectations come from?
I'm not letting people off the hook because they can't think fluidly. I'm not doing that.
I understand you're not letting them off the hook, but that's the truth of expectations. The expectations for Nebraska basketball and Nebraska football will always be vastly different.
Yeah, I understand. I clearly understand that part.
Right. That's all I'm talking about. That's why you can't compare Nebraska football and Nebraska basketball, because it's a different thing. You can compare Nebraska basketball to some of the, like Nebraska basketball is closer to Indiana football in terms of what the expectations are. I wouldn't say they're the same, but it's closer to Indiana football than it is to Nebraska football.
So it doesn't stop. Again, it's a supposition. Let's say, okay, Ravi, you're right. Even though I think that thing is about as holy as a wiffle ball. But let me just say, okay, you're right. Why do we use the same linear examples across the sport as a fan base when we want to paint this doom and gloom deal? It's like you're having your cake and eating it too. We talk about these two sports almost interchangeably, yet when it's convenient, we make the distinction about expectation levels. I don't like that part's not cool.
Who's we?
I'm just talking about like from a fan's perspective. You sound more like from a fan's perspective than coaching.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about expectations, you do have to talk about a fan perspective, because if you're talking about pressure from the outside,
so then that's the answer. That's who I'm talking about.
Okay, that's fine. And
because that's where this is coming from.
Sure, it is. That's from the fans' perspective. And I will say from a coaching perspective, I think that's the only real misstep that Fred Hoiberg has had along the way is choosing early on, and even though he's changed his philosophy about recruiting to a certain extent, he's chosen along the way a lot of plug-and-play options.
You do realize, though, that Nebraska, like in these points of crises for basketball, like all of a sudden, like Mo Iba will come up, Cipriano will come up, Tim Miles will come up. Do we do that in other? Do we do that in other?
We certainly do it in football.
It's like
we certainly do it in football. We bring up old coaches in football constantly.
Not as though we can hearken back to.
I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you how many people will be like, well, I mean, Bo figured out a way to win 9 games in the Big Ten.
Man, people are being disingenuous. Stop listening to those people.
I mean, you're asking if they say it or not.
But the conferences aren't even remotely the same, nor is the landscape.
I understand that. But that's the same thing in basketball. You can't hearken back to Tim Miles and a Mo Iba and think we're talking about the same thing here.
My point is we're quick to do it in nut cutting time because it's different than I think you think. My point is we want it both ways. We want to dumb down the expectations because we've always been bad. But the minute we can pile on a guy that we keep saying out loud that we think is a good coach, it ain't good enough.
Supposedly like. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I would argue that the roster construction, although it's looked different under Hoiberg over the past few years.
You're skipping over my main point, though, that started this.
Okay.
It's not like they haven't tried to get better players. They did.
But
we act like, oh, man, you know what?
I'm bringing it
Mia,
back.
my first choice, or Berke, this is what we want to – like,
no,
that's not how it went down.
I get that, but here's my issue. If you want to bring it down to talent evaluation.
You know why he brought in Raleigh? Because he didn't think he could
options.
He didn't think he could play. He didn't think he could play Ulis,
and he couldn't play either of them.
So, I mean, he shot his shot.
He did, but if there's,
I'm not.
If there's a financial,
and hear my heart. I'm not saying, hey man, there's no culpability here. What I'm telling you is you have to be starting from the same logical point if we're going to critique. Like let's just start at the point like.
So here's where I'm starting, right? You mentioned, hey, they've got pretty good resources for basketball. Fair?
I think better than people give them credit for.
Okay.
So I certainly think that.
Decent resources for basketball.
Yeah, let's say decent.
Are there teams that have acquired better players in similar landscapes? So let's say power conferences, we'll take like Omaha out of it. Let's say power conference teams that have acquired better players with similar or lesser resources.
I don't know. I mean, give me one.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
No, give me one.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that's where it would become a question of resources versus talent evaluation.
Do you remember the number one question I asked Schaefer before we started this basketball discussion?
What's that?
Just because I wanted to start from the same frame of reference. Mm-hmm. Are we talking about what's happening on the court or support off? I wanted to make that distinction early on so we're having the same.
And I'm talking about off-court stuff because I agree that Hoiberg is a good on-the-court coach. So the question is,
I'm telling you.
And I don't know what their resources are like compared to other teams.
This whole thing started when you made the nice distinction between coaching and it was a point of contingency between between you and Schaefer about maximizing versus getting better players to begin with.
Yeah, I think he needs to get better players.
Okay, listen, I'm simply telling you that for what Nebraska is in terms of its thought process, what people think about it, and its potential prowess, it does not meet the eye of potential high-caliber players. Because what happens is the profile the perceived profile is actually a problem for Nebraska basketball. It is the mid of the mids of a Power 4 conference, and people don't want to be here. But what we think is,
I agree,
it's kind of this sleeping giant. And man, if you just got, I'm telling you what the disconnect is.
I get that. I get that other people think that. I'm telling you, I don't think
so
that.
when you give me the analogy of other schools, I don't think it's apples to apples.
If you're
I
saying
actually think, like, how could you have all this and it not be good, man? Something must be wrong with you guys. So that's what I think players think.
If your argument is the perception of Nebraska basketball works against it despite the resources, I'll hear that argument. But if that's the case, then your talent evals better be off the charts.
That's
so that you can go
so
get
then
guys.
So you can't belittle him, or you didn't belittle him. You can. You can. I know it sounds like you can say, man, they need better players, because they do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think in the same vein, without that supposition that we just talked about, and say, man, I'd argue if Schaefer thinks he's coaching up to the best of his ability despite what he has, and you say, go get better players, you can't skip that. You can't skip that beginning step that I'm talking about.
Can I tweak how I say it a little bit?
Sure. It's pretty fluid.
Here's how I would say it then. Because I think when we're talking about better players, we're talking about higher profile, higher caliber players. Let me put it this way. If you can't go get those guys, and it doesn't seem like they can, they've been trying for a while, it doesn't seem like that's in the cards right now. Okay? Then go find players that are better fits for what you want to do.
Yeah. Or I'm listening to maybe a philosophical change.
Yes. Like, instead of just trying to get the best available players
of whatever, go get
the best version of what you need.
Yeah. I'll
right. I'll make that distinction as opposed to just
a
better
more
players.
Realistic discussion for where I think this program needs to go. Because we're saying a lot of things. It's like, it's all these myopic thoughts. And sometimes you just have to look at, like, what are we dealing with?
Yeah, sure. And listen, I'll hear that, because I do think there is a perception problem of Nebraska basketball amongst basketball recruits. Especially, there's a reason Nebraska really struggles with local kids. Like, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, it's the perception.
Right, 100%, right? So I get that. So if we're going to have that discussion, and I think it's fair that there is a perception problem with Nebraska basketball amongst recruits, then your talent evals and your ability to find the best version of what you need has to be off the charts.
That's why, but no problems. But that's why I hate to just go get better players.
Sure. I should say it better than that. That's
you know what I mean? Like, but
I should say it better than that.
You're
That's
far from alone.
No, I know.
It's like 60% of people that are like, and then they pit it against, we're just talking about things we don't know, whether it's the NIL dollars available or what. I'm just here to tell you, it's not like Nebraska can't and won't spend the money. People have to be willing to want to date you.
Yeah. So when I say go get better players,
listen, it's
what I mean.
You know what Nebraska basketball is? When you come to this campus and you look at the athletic department and you look at the facilities and you look at a guy like Coach Hoiberg and his prowess, you know what it's like? It's like the 41-year-old beautiful chick that's told you she's always wanted to have kids and yet she has none. You probably think something's wrong with her.
Or never been married, never had a long-term relationship.
You probably think something's wrong with her.
Wait, how did that happen?
You're going to go in with a little bit of trepidation.
Sure.
It's different than the 41-year-old that's single and
has 2 kids.
Or says, you know what?
I'm
independent. I've never wanted to have kids.
Yeah, focus on
and
my
then
career.
You know what you're dealing with. But when you leave the interpretation open to people that you're courting, they're going to think something's wrong with you.
Totally fair. I agree.
That's Nebraska's problem. I just know, to me, like, I've seen this for 15 years of the guys that come to this campus that they court.
When I say go get better players, I mean go get players that are better fits for what you want to do. Yeah. And that's their option right now, right? Because I've seen programs with less succeed.
And listen, I don't disagree. I'm just catching up on I'm in the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm not. QBA says perception appears to be reality. Yeah, that's fine.
No, yeah.
But I also listened to a coach, and this was in football, when he said, hey, I know, Coach Rule said to Christian Jones, I heard this. Listen, I know we're not very good right now. I know you're worried about winning. I know you are. It's been a while. But do you know how we can help get over the hump? We need better players like you. Like that.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to say those things out loud, though, and you have to say, listen, I know we have an image problem.
Yeah.
I know that we have a perception problem. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's a problem.
Yeah. And we need players like you to overcome
it. The perception is clearly the reality, but it's like we're fast forwarding.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody wants the smoke show or the rich dude or the whatever it is that you want in some. Like, we always want the best version of that.
Mm-hmm. Not always available to everybody.
Just not.
And
sometimes you have to make some harsh. You have to say some things out loud in terms of self-awareness before you can even have that conversation.
So I have this conversation with Jake all the time. He coaches NAI ball in Carolina, right? At NAI level, you're giving up something, right? You don't get perfect players at NAI. It just doesn't happen. Otherwise, they'd be playing Division I basketball. That's how it works.
It's
right?
understood.
Yeah. So what I ask him all the time is, what is the thing you can deal with? Like, what is the thing they're missing that you can deal with? It's the same if you're dating somebody, same with a job you're going to. It's the same thing at Nebraska basketball because you're not getting the perfect versions of the guys in the Big Ten. You're getting the lesser. So you have to decide what is the thing that's missing that you can deal with.
I want to know what Ken thinks is some BS. Ken is not happy.
Well, he said it's harder to find diamonds in the rough in basketball. Everyone knows who the studs are by the time they're 16. I'm not talking about the studs. There's good basketball players everywhere. I'm telling you this. There's good basketball players everywhere. I searched for them. I scouted them. I found them. Right?
I'm more inclined to agree with you. Not necessarily because of your prowess. Just sheer volume.
There's good basketball players.
Just the volume of guys that are playing.
100%. There are good basketball players everywhere. And that's why you see guys from little schools or nowhere schools end up playing in the NBA or going and transferring up.
Sometimes you just have to be able to see it.
Yes.
Right? Because
you're right. We know the studs are earlier than 16, honestly, Ken.
Yeah, but you're not always going to find you got to be able to see a right cell too, though.
Yes. Those are or Tanji or whoever, right? Like it's not just the Hunter Salas's that you're missing on. You're missing on the guys that are going to Colorado State or that are going to Loyola Chicago or that are going wherever else.
Again, I think that's too myopic to see that clearly, the end game. You'd have to be an amazing projection guy because no one, and I'm his biggest fan that's not his mom or Coach Barron's.
Tanji?
Tanji coming out of high school.
100%. Oh, I agree. But
there's not a snowball's chance in heck I saw what he's doing right now.
100%. I never thought he'd score 20 a game over the course of a year in the Big Ten. That's 100% accurate. But there are guys out there, you've seen them and I've seen them, that you can look at and say, there's a version of this that would work at X level.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you have to be able to do if you're Nebraska. And listen, it probably is asking a lot, but if all we've said is true about the perception problems and everything else about who Nebraska is, then you better be off the charts at talent eval.
You know who'd be
have to be.
Do you know who would be a really good point guard at Nebraska?
Who?
Especially for what they need?
Who?
Sharif Mitchell.
Yeah. He really would.
Yeah. Yes, he would.
That guy's playing in Ohio right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So it's not like there's good players everywhere.
You just have to be able to commit to it.
And you have to be able to identify what you need out of a player. Because if you're just going, and I think that has been part of the problem with Hoiberg, to be fair.
I mean,
I don't think he's done a good job of identifying.
Sharif could be Ulyss every day that ends in Y.
Every
day.
I think better version, frankly.
I know. That's my point.
Yeah. But that, to me, is one of the big issues with Hoiberg is I don't think he's identified the types of guys he needs so he can go project to that. Because if you don't know what you want him to end up looking like, really hard to figure out the projection on the front end.
That's the part I'll listen to.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're presented by Centris Federal Credit Union, and Centris Federal Credit Union is here to help. They know the power financial counseling can have when trying to meet your financial goals. That's why they partners with Green Path Financial Wellness to provide free personalized financial counseling services to its members. To find out more, go to centrisfcu.org to find out about their partnership with Green Path so that you can get free counseling towards your financial goals. It's centrisfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA. DB, we're having a good discussion there about...
That's how you got to be able to do radio, right?
Yeah, because I think we both sort of found common ground of what we were talking about, even though we started very different places.
I will definitely land the plane on you better pick a style and recruit to it.
Yes. And I don't think Hoiberg's done a good job of that.
Because you just don't know if you want what you don't get the sense you know what he wants the end game to look like.
Yes. I don't think
this kind of started with Sam saying that they should transition into just being offensive minded. But I don't know, do we want them to be Iowa?
Listen, I don't really have a problem with
whatever
style
it is. Yeah, I hear you.
Just pick it.
Okay, yeah.
Like, just choose the thing. This is I know Nebraska fans hate when I compare him to Creighton, but this is the thing Coach Mack has mastered, right? He knows exactly what he wants it to look like, and so he's able to find guys. Like, I get that Jemiah Neal was a reasonably high-profile guy, but there were a lot of people that weren't interested in Jemiah Neal.
I know.
There was a lot Damian Jefferson's my favorite one because nobody cared about Damian Jefferson. He was averaging 2 points a game at New Mexico. Al Huss is like, hey, that dude can ball. And Coach Mack had the vision to be like, this is what he can look like, right? There weren't a lot of people playing Christian Bishop at center, but he goes, hey, this is what it could look like. There weren't a lot of people that could use Denzel Mahoney in the way that they used him. And he goes, oh, this is what it can look like.
I miss those specs.
The rec specs?
Yes.
Like, Creighton has figured out a way to do this over and over and over again, and the best programs do. That, to me, is one of the big issues with Villanova right now. After Jay Wright, there is a crisis of identity.
Theft.
They have no idea who they are. They've still had some good players, especially last year. Their roster was pretty good, and they can't figure out what it's supposed to look like. At no point with Nebraska basketball over the past, it goes past Hoiberg, 15 years, have I confidently been able to say this is what it's supposed to look like?
The last coach that I think had an identity was probably Collier, and we didn't like it.
Yeah.
But there was a clear identity.
I couldn't decide if Sadler had an identity and I just hated it with the like really grinded out ugly basketball. Yeah. Like I could argue that was an identity and that I'd hear that.
It was, it was the Barry thing.
Yeah. But that's 15 years ago now at this point, right? Yeah. So it's been a really long time since I've been able, from year in to year out, definitively been able to say, because the identity last year was just like, K-State might get hot. Like that was the identity, right? Everything else kind of figure it out. And K-State might get hot. Like that was Nebraska basketball last year.
Because you heard the Morgan recruiting pitch, right? They just basically watch cut-ups of Mast.
Yeah. He's not ring Mast.
It's just
pretty obviously he's not ring Mast.
But I'm just
nope.
Yes,
that's the point.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they didn't go out and find, hey, Rink Mast is hurt this year. We really like the idea of having this point center thing. Let's go out and find the best guy that can guard bigs and is a really good passer. Now, again, that's a hard skill set to find, but that's not even it doesn't even appear to be what they went out and looked for.
And not look for it was, we don't play that way.
Yeah. They don't go out of their way to play that way.
They don't initiate off like.
It seemed like
Rink initiated offense.
Yeah, 100%. That's not a thing they seem to try and do
with a big
this year. So it's like, okay, is that part of your identity, or is that just a Rink Mast thing? But if you're going to recruit Andrew Morgan using Rink Mast tape, you would think that's part of your identity. But it's not really a thing they tried to do with Andrew Morgan, right? So there's this crisis of identity with Nebraska basketball, and it makes decent players look worse, and it makes it hard to get good players that look better. Because if you don't know what you're supposed to look like, it's really hard to get there. I had this argument, I think I brought it up off air. I had this argument with the offensive players under Bo Pelini. They got quality offensive players. They were recruiting at a pretty decent level, some offensive guys under Pelini before the end. It's kind of in that middle stretch of the Big Ten there.
I know what you're talking about, but we didn't know what the offense was going to look like.
And so you had these 4-star guys, these 4-star skill position players that you just didn't know what to do with, and they all sort of flamed out, and they're like, oh, we get all these busts from Florida, and then you start having this narrative about parts of the country. It's like, no, it's hard to develop a guy when you don't know what the end game is.
I don't know. You have to ask Coach Beck that.
That's the most impressive. That's the thing that I like the most about Coach Rule, maybe the most about Coach Rule, is it seems like he always knows what the end game is.
Yeah.
And if I've got a guy that knows what the end game is, I have a lot more confidence that he can get me there. He knows what the final destination is. I don't know that Fred Hoiberg does. That would be my biggest question mark on him as a coach. Because in, game out, I think he does a really good job. But the bigger picture stuff, in terms of what's our identity? How do we get players that fit that identity? How do we develop those players from where we get them to the end version of what they need to be for us to play that identity? That's where I think he really struggles. And maybe, I don't think Fred Hoiberg's on the hot seat. I don't think he should be. But if you want to make an argument of what needs to be successful at Nebraska basketball, find me a guy that does that really well. And I'd have that. I'd listen.
Because I don't want to stay with this too much longer, but I do think that's part of how you get guys in on the recruiting pitch too with your NIL.
That's what makes it appealing to them.
You have to clearly be able to say, okay, I could be the next. Oh, I see that.
Why do you think Creighton has gotten?
Oh, I know.
Stretch fours.
I've talked about that with them forever.
Stretch fours that can shoot
since Doug left.
Yes, 100%.
Since Doug left, I've said that. I get it.
Stretch fours that can shoot.
Forever. And I'm kind of just because not only can you see it, but like he told me, right? I'm not going to compromise this, and this.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do this, and this. Anything other than that, I think I can work with. But you have to have a high basketball IQ. You have to be highly skilled. And I prefer that you be able to shoot it. Everything other than that, I can work with.
And I do like that he puts the preference on the shoot it, because we've had some highly skilled guys come through Creighton that maybe couldn't shoot it great, but they were highly skilled.
But do you know what he teaches?
How to shoot?
You leave with better field goal percentages than you got there.
It's true.
Every guy.
Yeah. It's uncanny. It is a complete result of having an unwavering identity. And that's the thing that Nebraska basketball struggles with the most.
Yeah, I'm glad you're using Nebraska as an analogy.
As opposed to who?
I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of college,
North Carolina.
There's a lot of college basketball teams that go through that. I would definitely make the argument with North Carolina.
Yeah.
You know the difference between Hubert Davis and Roy Williams? I knew how Roy Williams wanted to play. Yep. 100% of the time, I knew how Roy Williams wanted to play basketball.
I don't want to talk about it.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm just teasing. I would never do that. If you ever work with me and I start acting like that, just kick my ass up on out of here. Just be like, nah, this ain't for you.
Not today.
But them shut it down guys because they either don't know or haven't prepared. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not going to do that.
I didn't think you were not prepared. I just thought you were in your feels.
Oh, now that could happen. But that's about if it was going to happen for a long time, it'd be about 5-6 minutes.
Yeah.
You can get me off of it. But I definitely can be in them.
I would make the argument that's part of the problem with Kansas this year.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I'm like full stop.
You really know how Kansas wants to play this year?
This started a handful of years ago with trying to play two bigs.
Sure.
And are they going to play through the post or are they not?
Mm-hmm.
So this thing has kind of been with Kansas for a handful of years now.
Yeah, I would agree.
I'm serious. Even when they won, it was just like
that's part of the reason.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, because nobody felt good about how they were playing.
Yeah, didn't see that coming.
100%. That's honestly, I would make the argument, even though they get really, really high level players, I would make the argument that's been a problem with Duke as well. Like Duke has gotten really high level guys, but they all then sort of just try and mash it together and figure it out. And maybe they will this year, maybe they won't. But that's been part of the issue with, like the Zion, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett team. That team was stacked.
Who brought up Cam Reddish the other day? Was that Jacob?
DeMarinis. Because he was comparing Ace Bailey, his downside to basically Cam Reddish.
Somebody said some Cam Reddish vibes, and I was like, you know what? I could kind of see that.
Yeah, a little bit. But if you want to point to a team, like that's why UConn has been really good. They have an identity. They recruit to that identity. They play to that identity.
We're going to come back with a few winners.
Yeah,
I'm hot.
Let's come back and get some winners. I know you got the Wofford Terriers last night on the money line.
And a dirty, stinky game.
With the dine.
With Pepperdine.
We'll come back. We'll get some
27 with 3 minutes to play.
We'll get some more winners from DB here on Hurrdat Sports Live.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. We're here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where you can come out here. Don't forget about those March specials. They got that fish and chips if you need to get your Lent game right, or if you're a regular heathen like me, you can try that Reuben and get your, kind of starting getting the St. Patrick's Day vibe. Reubens are kind of St. Patrick's Day, right?
If I was going to eat a sandwich, you know what I'd ask him to do?
What's that?
Especially since those are my guys and gals back there now.
What's that?
Just give me a slice of cheddar and the corned beef on a sandwich. I don't need the kraut or dressing or.
So I like the dressing. I'll miss me with the kraut.
Yeah, I'm not a kraut guy.
Not a big sauerkraut guy.
No,
There's an establishment in town that basically makes a Reuben without sauerkraut, and I love it. It's incredible.
A Reuben without. So just like a corned beef and Swiss?
So it's corned beef. They put pastrami in there also. It's Swiss. It's the dressing, and it's on the marbled rye.
I have a point.
It's so good.
I don't have the flat. Last time, a couple years ago, I got the whole packer.
Yeah.
The corned beef. That's when for the burn ends.
I'm still waiting on more corned beef burn ends, by the way.
Man.
It's been like a year now because it was at your birthday last year.
Do I want to splurge?
I need some more of those.
I should.
Dude, I'll pay for it. Just make them for me.
Well,
they're really good.
Well, now we're talking.
I'm gonna lose some bets here pretty soon. Just when you cook it, invite me over.
TK he's funny. Like, he's really funny. He had a great pick on Saturday.
He said sauerkraut's amazing, you heathens.
Who, TK?
Yeah.
That's an interesting take, but
I thought he had like kind of capped the game.
Yeah.
Because he liked the team. They're getting 11.5.
Yeah.
He's like, that's way too many. And I was like, oh man, no, Tulane's the play.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I like these guys. I know it's the wrong T team. The team that he liked won outright, getting 11.5.
Yeah.
And I texted him later on. I was like, man, I said, this is pretty good. It was nice. He goes, yeah, more like just knowing too much about the home team. Just fading those guys. I was like, all right, Tim B. Edwards. Not that I like the one team. We're just fading the other one.
Just fade to black.
Yeah, TK out on Wichita State.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. They lost that thing outright.
Yeah. Man, they've been
by almost double digits.
They've been a mess.
I don't know what happened to them.
Well,
but I know we used to hoop in that city like 4 times a summer.
It's a big AAU city, right?
Yes.
Like there's a ton of stuff there.
And it has not very.
I mean,
but not a very nice place to visit.
Basically, ever since Greg Marshall's left, it's not been great there.
I think more since Boeing left. I think when they left, that turned in a hurry.
Well, I'm at the basketball program.
Oh yeah, me too.
Itself, but
Anthony says Wichita misses Creighton. Boy, those were great.
I mean, last time I saw Wichita play, Dougie was dropping 41 on them. So,
and his wife was going bananas.
Yeah, that was every time. But yeah,
what's he doing now?
I don't know. Let's Google good old Greg Marshall.
Yeah, what is he doing? Because that act there's no way he could be dealing with what's going on right now.
I wouldn't imagine. He was that guy talking about guys that I think suck.
Wow. I was wondering if he was on your list.
Oh yeah.
Like
lot of Hurley.
Hey, wait till you see the new round of heads.
Oh, do you have a you have a Hurley head?
Yes. That's the only one I'm going to tell you. I mean, they are fantastic.
So yeah, he has not coached since he's not been a head coach since he was at Wichita State. Let's see if we can find a current occupation.
Oh wow, I just checked one of the things that I liked. It's a full 2 points more than this morning.
Ooh.
And it's an early one too.
He has not coached since 2020 when he was unceremoniously ran out of town.
Yeah.
Resigned, allegedly.
My bad. That too.
Yeah, he was ran out of town with Wichita State. Has not coached since then. So I don't know that he's doing anything right now.
Chilling. Reintroducing himself to his wife as an empty nester.
I think they were familiar. She was at a lot of the games. I don't know if you recall. She was a very vocal.
Yeah, I get it.
Vocal supporter.
Well played.
TK says Marshall still lives in Wichita. Go get a job, man.
He must be in one of the nice parts.
Yeah, maybe. No, no. Depends on what that contract negotiation buyout was.
An inordinate amount of time in Wichita. I mean, for 12 years.
So I used to know somebody lived in Wichita. I always called it Wichitawful.
There were some nice little low-key hole-in-the-walls, though.
Yeah.
I had a great.
Like the one we went to in Indy?
Yep. That place was fire.
Seems like about the vibe. It was good food.
I was scared to go in there, though.
A little bit, yeah. Did not know what the crowd was going to be like.
Have you? Yeah, I'm sure you have. You've been the only one of something somewhere, right?
Yeah, most places. I went to Miller North in 2005, yeah.
Oh, now that's like.
It's like cultural diversity headquarters now, but 20 years ago, that was not the case.
Yeah.
It was me and Jermaine, just Lonely Island boys.
Yeah, that place.
Dupree.
I couldn't eat fast enough. But that food was sensational.
It was good. It was good food.
And that's why you don't judge a book by its cover, because the waitress actually turned out to.
No, they were super cool.
She was way good.
Yeah, they were super cool.
I was like,
I don't know how the other patrons felt about us, but the waitress was cool.
Well, I know how they felt about Avery, which was making me mad, but outside of that, it was fine. It's like, wow, really, guys?
A lot of eyeballs. A lot of eyeballs in the place.
Knock it off.
What do we got for winners today?
So I liked Cincinnati early, but it's 7 and the hook now. It was 5.5 this morning.
Ooh, that's a big jump.
It is, but it's early too, so maybe it's just the action because everybody's on it. So let's put that one. Let's put that one to the side.
You got any feels about St. Mary's Gonzaga?
What's the number?
3.5 Gonzaga.
Wow, St. Mary's owns them right now.
Gonzaga hasn't been very good against good basketball teams. Gonzaga's 3.5-point favorite.
I kind of like the Zags.
Because the line doesn't make any sense?
Yeah, I kind of like the Zags.
I'm going to take the free money. Give me St. Mary's.
Oh, you're back on it again, huh?
Give me St. Mary's.
Yeah, I like.
I'm a Gonzaga hater, so it's.
I know, which is hard to have conversations because your judgment is clouded.
It's fine. I really do hope.
Wow, Central Connecticut is laying 10.5 in the championship game.
That's right.
Jeez, come on, St. Francis, PA, man, hang in there.
It's the fighting Sellers, man.
Go ahead, Coach Sellers.
I really do hope Oklahoma State is able to get Cincinnati, though. Give Coach Lutz a little win there.
I don't know. They're on the bus.
Yeah.
Of the struggling variety.
They are. Year one's been a little tougher, my guy.
So I will call that a lean, but I do like TCU.
TCU minus 2.5?
Yeah, it was. Golly, it's already that.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1.5.
Remember when Jamie Dixon was like one of the best coaches in the country?
Yeah, and I still think he's okay.
That was a long time ago, though.
Yeah, I still think he's okay, and I like UTEP.
UTEP, what are they?
1.5.
1.5 UTEP and 2.5 TCU.
Yeah. You like it. You like it. I love it.
Those are the DB winners. I'm taking St. Mary's. Give me my free money.
I would be on the other end if it were me. And I'm not putting your $20 on the line.
And DB's better at this than I am.
I am not putting your. I gotta pocket that.
You gotta save up for some tequila.
Man, I've got to go back and look at that butterfly.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow. More Hurrdat Sports Live.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.